Hello, my festival-loving friends, and welcome back to our little corner of the internet where the coffee's always brewing and the laughs are always brewing louder. Always brewing louder. Mira here, and I've got a culinary confession from my past week. You know how I love a good adventure. Well, very ambitious cooking adventure, right? Well, I decided to embark on a very ambitious cooking adventure, a multi-large. Authentic something or other that involved no less than 3 woks and a spice grinder that looks suspiciously like a medieval torture device.
Mira, I can always count on you to turn a simple meal into an internatic to burn was the kitchen sink. I'd stow away because it's metal incident. Lens Biu and Koei because it's metal. Only common chuity culinary glare declare glare. This is my new cooking style, declaring this is metal. Declaring digging, this is my new colibi. Eve declaring. Datable abstract expression is out there in. Demme didn't mean in cooking style new way. Trao alvi observe biggerine. Edern bedin. Taken well, tau the eager in it hell. Spell well the albeit didn't when he uses a stenger of bidding all the.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. We know many of you are scrolling through travel blogs, watching documentaries, and maybe even dreaming of a fresh start, asking which country is truly for me. Well, today we're putting two incredibly unique nations under our friendly magnifying glass, the ancient beauty of Cambodia and the resilient spirit of Ukraine. Well, we're not just scratching the surface here, we're diving deep to reveal the rich tapestry of differences that make each country so special.
Exactly. And for anyone out there wrestling with the big questions, like where will my kids thrive? Or even will my dads thrive? Or even will my dating life survive a move to that country? Rest assured, we've got economy will treat my country. Rest assured, we've got you covered. Think of us as your personal cultural compass, pointing out not just the pictures highlights, but the everyday realities too. Wow, we'll explore everything that makes distinct. So by the end distinct. So by the end distinct. So by the end a picture of where your nature of where you a picture of where your nature of where you a picture a penetra.
And remember, whether you're planning to backpack through the temples of Angkor Wat or sip borscht in Kyiv, this is the podcast that's going to arm you with all the insights you need. Oh, so grab your imaginary passport, get comfy, and let's unravel the beautiful complexities of Cambodia and Ukraine, starting right now. All right, adventurers and armchair travelers. Oh, today we're buckling up for a whirlwind tour through safety and crime rates into incredibly unique places Cambodia and Ukraine. Now, Leo, you always say, I see the world through rose-tinted glasses. But even I know safety is a serious snap to consider when exploring.
Serious snap, Mira? Wow, you truly have a way with words. I pictured danger as a crunchy, onion ring flavored snack. But yes, safety. For those of us who prefer not to lose our wallets or, our sense of direction after a friendly chat with a stranger. It's a vital pit stop. So Cambodia. My brain immediately conjures images of ancient temples and, well, watch your back, made signs. What's the vibe there, from your ever-optimistic lens?
Oh, Leo, your brain is a marvel. Oh, you're not wrong though. For Cambodia, especially in places like Phnom Penh or Siem Reap, a lot of the crime you'll hear about is actually petty theft. Think bag snatching from tuk-tuks or pickpockets in crowded markets. Oops, it's less danger lurks around every corner. I mean, I once almost lost my bright reed fanny pack to a particularly swift monkey. And I wasn't even in Cambodia.
A monkey, Mira? Wow! That's prime stand-up material right there. And... Hey, wow. That's prime stand-up material right there. Anyway, I thought my biggest risk was accidentally ordering a decaf. Ouch! But you're right. Petty crime is often the main course for tourists in many developing countries. It's less about violent confrontations and more about opportunistic swipes. The locals. They're often just trying to make a living and coups and curse.
That's a good point, Leo. It's not about being afraid, but being smart, right? Like, don't flash your brand new, sparky smartphone like it's a disco ball in a dark alley. Speaking of keeping your valuables safe, I always make sure my bright red backpack has a little lock on it. And I wear it backwards in crowds. And maybe anti-pickpocket strategy. Ugh. For our friends planning to get to like this video on YouTube.
Your anti-monkey strategy is legendary, Mira. Wow. I'm pretty sure a monkey would just take your entire backpack and start a small business. Oops. But seriously, your point about awareness is spot on for both countries. In Cambodia, beyond the petty stuff, you have to be mindful of things like corrupt officials asking for small fees. In Cambodia, beyond the petty stuff, you have to be mindful of things like corrupt officials asking for small fees, airstrike, and more unwanted fighting for Ukraine outside of the immediate conflict.
Oh, Leo, you always find the silver lining in every unwanted financial negotiation. Oh, but you're right. It's about being informed. And a great way to stay informed, by the way, is by checking out our articles on Jet for more detailed travel safety tips. We put a lot of effort into those, so go take a peek. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button on YouTube so you don't miss any of our crazy adventures. Now, for Ukraine, before the recent, events certain with Cyber. It wasn't about someone snatching your physical wallet, Khmer.
A different beast indeed, Mira. And a beast that doesn't care if you're wearing a bright red fanny pack or a perfectly tailored suit. A perfectly tailored suit. Unfortunately also had its share of online threats. It's around that share of online threats. It's a reminder that safety isn't just about what happens on the street, but what happens on the street. But what happens with your data? Real men actually curious about what our listeners think about what our listeners think about. Think a bank, a carpack, or someone hacking a cavalier.
Mad Max with scooters. Wow, I can totally picture it. And you know me, I'd probably be the one trying to hitch a ride on a flaming guitar. But yes, road safety is huge. In both countries, being a pedestrian can sometimes feel like an extreme sport. Oops. It's not necessarily a crime, but it's a major safety factor, right? You need to have eyes in the back of your head and maybe a little prayer ready. So, when we talk about general safety, it's not just about what bad guys might do.
Underprepared is an understatement, Mira. You'd need a full-body bubble suit for some of those intersections, ouch. But you hit on a critical point. Safety isn't just about criminal intent. It's also about chaos, infrastructure, and local driving habits. In Ukraine, before the large-scale conflict, traffic accidents were also a serious concern in major cities. More detailed insights on travel insurance are also available on Jet.
Oh, Definitely travel insurance. Well, that's like the ultimate safety snap for your entire trip. But really, for all the headlines can sometimes paint a scary picture. General safety in both Cambodia and non-conflict areas of Ukraine largely boils down to common sense and basic precautions, just like anywhere else. You know, not leaving your wallet down to your back pocket and trusting your gut. It's less about avoiding outright danger and more about being street smart and respectful of local customs. Right, Leo?
Spot on, Mira. It's about being observant, not paranoid. And for anyone thinking about visiting either of these fascinating countries, the vast majority of experiences are positive and welcoming. Just remember, a flashy watch in a bustling market is less a fashion statement and more a public service announcement for opportunists. Ooh, so, stay alert, travel smart, and maybe pack a spare wallet tour. You know, just use your anti-monkey fanny pack.
Alright, so when we talk about political stability and social harmony, we're really diving into the heartbeat of a nation, right? It's like checking the pulse. If it's steady, life feels a bit smoother. I'm certain that our listeners living in these countries would agree with me. This is such a critical topic.
Yeah, or if it's jumping around like a kid on a sugar rush. Then you know things are, well, let's just say interesting. And for expats or anyone thinking about moving, political stability isn't just a headline. It's whether your coffee shop is open tomorrow, right? Speaking of which, our first country, Cambodia, has had a rather eventful past, to put it mildly.
Whoa. Eventful is certainly one way to describe it. You know, for a country that has been through so much, Cambodia has really worked towards rebuilding a sense of calm. The general feeling now is much more stable than decades ago, but it's not without its ongoing complexities. What do you think, Leo? Is it more like a gentle river, or still a slightly turbulent stream?
I'd say it's a river that's had a few too many unexpected rapids in the past, and now it's trying really hard to just flow straight. But there are always a few rocks under the surface you don't see. Politically, it's often described as a one-party dominant system, which brings a certain kind of stability, the kind where not much changes, if you catch my drift. For our listeners who might be new to this, it means the government tends to stay pretty consistent, often for very long periods.
Oh, consistency. I love that. Though sometimes too much consistency means less room for new dance moves, you know? But on the social harmony side, despite its painful history, the Cambodian people are incredibly resilient and warm. Wow. You see a lot of local communities coming together, especially in rural areas. It's like they've chosen to focus on rebuilding and moving forward, which is just beautiful.
True, their resilience is remarkable. If I had been through even a quarter of their history, I'd probably still be hiding under my bed with a cup of very strong coffee. And while there's a visible effort for peace, there are still discussions around human rights and political freedoms. It's not a free-for-all party, let's say. You might not see huge public debates on the main channels, but that doesn't mean everyone's singing in perfect harmony.
Now, if we gently shift gears, speaking of singing in harmony, or perhaps not quite, let's talk about Ukraine. Whoa, this is a very different kettle of fish, isn't it? The political stability there is, well, entirely overshadowed by the ongoing situation. Ouch, it's not just a political issue, it's a fight for existence.
Overshadowed is a polite way of putting it, Mira. It's like saying a storm overshadows a picnic. Right now, Ukraine is in a full-blown conflict, which obviously impacts every single aspect of political stability and social harmony. When you're literally fighting for your country's sovereignty, daily governance takes on a completely different meaning. I mean, you can really talk about the usual ebb and flow of politics when half the country is focused on defense.
Absolutely. But what's truly astonishing, and I think our YouTube listeners would agree, is the incredible social harmony and unity among the Ukrainian people in the face of such adversity. Wow. It's an example of national pride and solidarity that's almost unbelievable. People who might have had different political leanings are now united, fighting together, supporting each other. Ah,
Inspiring, yes. Though I'm sure for anyone trying to navigate daily life, inspiring doesn't quite cover the sheer difficulty. Ouch. While the unity is undeniable, social harmony is also strained by massive internal displacement, families separated, and the constant threat. It's a country where every citizen is now, in some way, an active participant in their own stability. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. It's certainly not a situation many of us have faced directly.
right. And thinking about how expat life would look in Cambodia, you'd likely experience a stability that's been carefully constructed, albeit with watchful eyes. In Ukraine, you'd be witnessing history in the making. A testament to human spirit, but undoubtedly challenging. The dynamics are polar opposites, showing us that stability can come from different places, from a settled, dominant leadership, or from a fierce.
Indeed, one is trying to hold itself steady after a long struggle. The other is demonstrating incredible unity during one. It's a stark comparison of how nations deal with their own internal and external pressures. For more insights like this, don't forget to check out JIT AI. We have a whole trove of details on countries around the globe.
Yeah, and if you look at Cambodia, the leadership has been in place for a long time. So there's a predictable political landscape. Whereas in Ukraine, the government is operating under extreme pressure, but with immense international support and a population rallying behind it. It's a different kind of stability born from crisis.
It's almost like one country is trying to keep all its plates spinning without dropping any, while the other has decided to just juggle everything while on a unicycle. Both require immense effort, but the show is very different. So, for anyone considering these places for a long-term stay, it's about understanding the type of harmony and stability you're looking for. And frankly, what you're prepared to witness firsthand.
You know how sometimes my bank account feels like it's in a constant wrestling match with my shopping cart? Well, speaking of economic conditions, let's talk about Cambodia and Ukraine. It's like comparing my morning chaos to your perfectly brewed coffee. Each has its own unique, sometimes dramatic flavor.
Mira, your bank account's wrestling match sounds like a metaphor for global markets, always a struggle, never a clear winner. But comparing your coffee obsession to anything stable is quite the stretch. Mine is a finely tuned machine, unlike some economies. Oh, when we look at Cambodia's economic conditions and cost of living, it's a whole different kettle of fish, or perhaps a different bowl of noodle soup, wouldn't you say?
Noodle soup sounds good right now, actually. But seriously, Cambodia's economy, before we even get into the cost of living, has been heavily reliant on things like garment exports, tourism, and agriculture. It's like they've got these three big pillars holding everything up. Wow, for expats, the cost of living there can be surprisingly affordable, especially outside of Phnom Penh. It's not like you're trying to buy a villa with a daily coffee budget. I'm certain our listeners thinking of a budget-friendly adventure would agree with me here.
Affordable, you say? Well, that's one way to put it. I imagine affordable means you can still get a decent street food meal without having to sell a kidney. And let's not forget the US dollar is widely accepted, which can make things feel a bit simpler, or more complicated depending on how you look at it. It's like a currency duet, sometimes harmonious, sometimes a bit off-key.
Wow, drastic is an understatement, Leah. Ouch. It's like going from a gentle river cruise to a whitewater rafting trip, economically speaking. Ukraine's economy, which was already evolving with strong agricultural and industrial sectors, has faced unimaginable challenges. It's not just about the numbers anymore, it's about resilience and survival. Wow. And for anyone considering living there, well, the cost of living is fluid, to say the least. It's a testament to the human spirit, honestly.
Fluid is a polite way of saying constantly changing and probably giving economists migraines. My brain certainly gets a workout trying to keep up. Before the current situation, the cost of living in cities like Kyiv was remarkably affordable for many, particularly compared to Western Europe. You could get a rather nice apartment for what some people pay for a closet in London. But now? The market is volatile. Exchange rates are like a bungee jump. And finding stability is a daily quest.
Well, your coffee quest is serious business, Leo, we know. But it highlights a key point for expats. Understanding the job market and income potential in both countries is crucial. In Cambodia, you might find opportunities in NGOs teaching English, or perhaps tourism once things fully bounce back. The local wages are generally lower, so foreign earned income goes a lot further. Well, it's like having a superpower for your wallet.
Superpower for your wallet, or just a reminder of vast global disparities? Aha! I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Is it an economic advantage, or does it create a separate bubble? Anyway, for Ukraine, the job market for foreigners, especially now, is heavily geared towards humanitarian aid, reconstruction, or specific tech roles that can be done remotely. Local employment outside of these critical sectors is a much tougher nut to crack. It's not the usual find a cozy cafe job scenario.
Note, definitely not the cozy cafe job, though I'm sure someone somewhere is still brewing amazing coffee. Speaking of which, for those curious about official sources or looking for more detailed reports on these shifting economies, don't forget to check out Jet Off AI. They often have articles and resources that dive deeper into these kinds of global economic trends. Wow, it's super helpful.
A valuable plug, Mira. I imagine navigating tax systems and financial regulations in both countries would add another layer of fun to the economic adventure. In Cambodia, the system is relatively straightforward, often favoring foreign investment. But like anywhere, you need to be sharp-eyed. In Ukraine, things are certainly more complex now, with emergency measures and devolving policies. It's like trying to hit a moving target with your finding. Ouch. Ouch. If you think this is wrong, please let us know in the target with your finding.
Oh, yes. Please comment on YouTube. We love hearing your perspectives. To sum it up, Cambodia offers a generally lower cost of living and simpler financial landscape for expats with foreign income, while Ukraine presents a challenging but incredibly resilient economic environment. It's less about luxury and more about supporting a nation in flux. Wow. Both offer unique experiences, but your wallet's journey would be drastically different in each.
Indeed. One is a calm stroll through a market, the other is a sprint through a financial obstacle course. But hey, both offer plenty of stories, right? You just have to decide if you want your story to be about stretching $1 or about navigating a revolution with your budget. And always remember that espresso is non-negotiable, no matter the economic climate.
Well, speaking of amazing discoveries, when it comes to finding a place to call home, or even just a temporary sleep spot, some countries truly have a flair for the dramatic. Oh, today, we're diving into accommodation options and quality in Cambodia and Ukraine. I'm imagining adorable guest houses in Siem Reap versus sleek city apartments in Kyiv. It's like choosing between a hammock under palm trees and a cozy blanket on a city balcony.
Yes. Dramatic is one word for it. My version of dramatic involved trying to decipher rental contracts in a language I don't speak. Aha! While Mira dreams of hammocks, I'm usually researching if the charming rustic villa in Cambodia actually has running water or if it's more of a bucket and well situation. And in Ukraine, you might find an apartment that looks like a photo shoot straight out of a magazine, but then you realize the heating system is from 1982. Wow.
Oh, come on. Leo, you always look for the adventure in the plumbing. But seriously, Cambodia offers such a range. From charming, family-run guest houses where you might wake up to the sounds of monks chanting, to really plush boutique hotels near the temples of Angkor.
A leaf in your shampoo is preferable to a leak in your ceiling mirror. In Ukraine, particularly in cities like Lviv or Kyiv, the accommodation scene is dominated by apartments. You've got everything from beautifully renovated modern flats in the city center, which can be quite stylish, to older Soviet-era buildings that might require you to bring your own handyman. The quality varies wildly, sometimes even floor by floor in the same building.
But that's part of the fun, isn't Gems? I'm certain our listeners who've explored Cambodia would agree that the local guest houses often come with the warmest hospitality. Plus, the affordability there is incredible. Your budget stretches so much further, allowing for longer stays, or maybe even upgrading to a room with a pool. It's like your wallet is on vacation too.
True, your wallet might feel like it's on vacation in Cambodia, but in Ukraine, it's more like it's taking a working holiday. Aha! While generally more affordable than Western Europe, apartment rentals in Kyiv can still be a significant chunk of your budget, especially for modern, well-located places. Older buildings might offer lower prices, but then you're rolling the dice on utility costs or the joy of dealing with a 30-year-old washing machine. It's all about managing expectations, right?
Exactly. It's not just about the cost though. The living experiences are so different. In Cambodia, you might find yourself in a homestay, really immersing yourself in local life, learning traditional cooking. It's not just a place to sleep, it's a cultural exchange. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Which experience sounds more appealing to them?
And in Ukraine, particularly if you're looking for a long-term rental, you'll dive deep into the local bureaucracy. From navigating rental agreements that might be solely in Ukrainian to understanding utility bills that fluctuate more than my mood before coffee. Ouch! For those looking for modern convenience, I'd suggest checking out our resources on genocide for tips on finding reliable landlords and understandings. It can save you a headache or two.
Oh, a headache or two is just another excuse for a good laugh, Leo. But you're right, the practicalities matter. Whether it's the charm of a riverside bungalow in Cambodia or a bustling city apartment in Odessa, quality can be subjective. I think the key for expats is to really research and talk to others who've lived there. And maybe, just maybe, mentally prepare for a few quirks along the way.
Quirks is a polite way of saying unexpected challenges that will make for excellent podcast material later. Whether it's the occasional gecko as a roommate in Cambodia, or discovering that hot water in your Ukrainian apartment means boiling it yourself, it's all part of the journey. Just make sure your rental agreement specifies what hot water really means. Seriously, if you think this is wrong, please let us know in the comments.
You know, Leo, there's just something about filling out official forms that gets my heart racing. That's like a treasure hunt, but instead of gold, you find stamps and signatures. Oh, we're talking about the visa, immigration, and official procedures for Cambodia and Ukraine today, and I'm buzzing with anticipation. Whoa. I once spent an entire afternoon trying to figure out a single line on a visa application, and it felt like solving a crossword puzzle with invisible ink.
Boom! Mir, you truly are an enigma. Most people look at a stack of government forms and immediately start sweating. You, on the other hand, see a comedy special waiting to happen. For Cambodia, it's pretty much a smooth sail into paradise, thanks to their e-visa system. You click a few buttons, upload a selfie where you're probably making a face, and boom, you're almost in.
Well, you know me, Leo. I find joy in the mundane. Aha! And Cambodia really leans into that easy access vibe. For tourists, but e-visa is a dream. No queues, no frantic searching for a pen that actually works. And for those thinking of staying longer, like an expat trying to set up a small noodle store, it gets a bit more treasure hunt than quick click. It feels like there's psychopathy here. Let's make it wow.
Oh, let's make it work often translates to let's see how much patience you actually have. Speaking of patience stretching it to its absolute limit, let's move to Ukraine. While many Western countries enjoy visa-free short stays, the real fun begins when you actually, live there. Whoa, it's a bit like playing a game of bureaucratic Tetris, where the pieces never quite fit, and sometimes they just vanish. Ouch! Especially with recent events. Things are, shall we say, fluid.
Oops. So, document heavy dance sounds like my kind of party, as long as there's upbeat music playing in the background. But seriously, Ukraine's situation is unique, and while the procedures might be extensive, I hear there's a strong sense of community support to help navigate it all. It's like everyone pitches in to help you decipher paragraph 7. Subsection B, of a form you didn't even know existed. For all the nitty-gritty details on these processes, you can always head over to Jetoffer
Oh, absolutely, Mira. The community might help, but the stack of paperwork won't magically disappear. I once tried to renew my driver's license in a foreign country on task, which won in dice where I filled out the same form 7 times because each official pointed out a different missing piece of information. Whoa! I felt like I needed a dedicated translator just for the office jargon. Ukraine's processes for long-term stays, work permits, or residency can feel like that, requiring quite a bit of translation, both linguistic and feel like that.
I say, Leo, is that in Cambodia, it's mostly a SUR party. And in Ukraine, it's more of a bring every single document you've ever owned, plus a few from your ancestors kind of party. It's fascinating how different countries approach the same goal, letting people in. It's almost like they're secretly testing your resolve, isn't it? Isn't it? If you've made it through the Ukrainian pink paperwork.
Exactly. Cambodia wants your tourism dollars, Ukraine wants to know your entire life story, and then some. It's not necessarily about being difficult, but rather thorough, in that special government way. And for anyone out there who's managed to make sense of all these official procedures, whether in Cambodia or Ukraine, drop us a comment on YouTube. We're genuinely curious about what our listeners think and how their journeys compare. Who knows? Maybe you've got a secret handshake for the immigration officer.
Access to and quality of health services, this one always makes me think of those little adventures or misadventures you have when you're traveling. Oh, remember that time I thought I caught some exotic jungle fever, but it turned out to be just a bad mongo? My friends told me to prepare for the worst. It certainly adds a layer of excitement to life, doesn't it?
Mongo fever, huh? I swear, Mira, your life is just a series of self-induced dramatic episodes. Anyway, speaking of dramatic episodes, let's talk about actual healthcare, especially for our friends who've decided to make new lives in Cambodia and Ukraine. We're diving into access to and quality of health services today. My definition of quality health service is a doctor who doesn't look more scared than I do.
Oh, Leo, you're so dramatic, but you have a point. Wow, when you're an expat, Understanding the healthcare system is almost as crucial as knowing where to find the best street food, maybe even more. Let's start with Cambodia, which often gets a bad rap, but it's transforming. Oh, I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this, especially those living there. If you think this is wrong, please let us know in the comments.
Transforming, huh? I've seen some transformations in my life, mostly involving my hair after a bad haircut. From an expat's perspective, Cambodia's public health care can be a bit of a gamble. Ouch. We're talking basic facilities, sometimes limited equipment, and a significant language barrier outside the main cities. It's less spotty and more hope for the best, if you catch my drift.
Well, that's where the private sector swoops in like a superhero. Well, especially in Phnom Penh and Siem Reap, you'll find modern international clinics. Oh, they have English-speaking staff that's trained abroad. It's like finding a 5-star hotel after a long trek through the jungle. The cost can be higher, of course, but for many expats, it's worth the peace of mind.
Peace of mind, or just the ability to communicate your symptoms without playing charades. Aha! And that's where international private health insurance becomes less of a luxury and more of an absolute necessity in Cambodia. Because if things get really serious, or dare I say, Mongol fever escalates, you might find yourself on a medical flight to Bangkok or Singapore. Oh, not exactly a quick Uber ride.
Don't forget the pharmacies, though. They're everywhere, which is super convenient. You can often get medications without a prescription, which, depending on your perspective, is either amazing or slightly terrifying. I imagine it's like a candy store for grown-ups, but with more serious consequences if you pick the wrong flavor. But hey, it helps a lot for minor ailments.
A candy store where you might accidentally buy a laxative instead of allergy meds. Oops! That's a story for another podcast, perhaps. Now, shifting gears to Ukraine, a country that's seen its share of challenges. Their public healthcare system has been undergoing reforms, trying to shake off its Soviet-era legacy. It's a bit like trying to teach an old dog new tricks, but the dog is also wearing a tracksuit from the 80 seconds.
But those reforms are definitely making a difference. Wow. In major cities like Kyiv and Lviv, you'll find private clinics that are incredibly modern, well-equipped, and offer excellent service. Often with English-speaking doctors. It's not as prohibitively expensive as Western Europe either, so you get quality without entirely emptying your wallet. Would you think that's a positive side?
Positive for your wallet, maybe. And for avoiding those moments where you have to mime your pain to a public doctor who looks like they've seen it all and then some. In Ukraine, opting for private health insurance for expats isn't just a recommendation, it's practically a life hack. The public system can still have longer wait times, older facilities, and let's be blunt, sometimes the odd request for gratitude, which I believe is a polite way of asking for a small donation.
Oh, you and your gratitude. But seriously, Leo, Ukraine's pharmaceutical sector is quite robust. Wow, pharmacies are plentiful, and you can generally trust the quality of medications. Oh, no accidental laxatives there, I hope. It's a significant plus when you compare it to some other developing nations.
So, to sum it up from my entirely unbiased, slightly sarcastic point of view. In Cambodia, if you're an expat, you're pretty much banking on private clinics and international insurance, or a quick flight to Thailand. Whoa! In Ukraine, the private sector is also your best bet for peace of mind, offering good quality at a more manageable price point than some other regions. Both require foresight, a good insurance plan, and maybe a translation app.
Very diplomatic, Leo. But that's a great takeaway. For both countries, private healthcare is the way to go for most expats, with international insurance being non-negotiable. Okay, Leo, remember how last time we were chatting about? Well, a lot of things, and I mentioned almost getting lost in a labyrinth of my own thoughts.
Oh, yes. The maze of Mira's mind, a truly baffling yet entertaining place. I think you were just trying to avoid paying attention to my brilliant insights.
Hey, it's never about avoiding you. It's about finding the humor in the moment. Well, speaking of getting around, let's roll into Cambodia's transportation. Well, I remember the sheer vivacity of Phnom Penh streets. It felt like an intricate dance.
Vivacity is one way to put it. I'd call it a ballet of controlled chaos, specifically with the tuk-tuks. You step out and immediately get propositioned by a dozen drivers. It's like a transportation gauntlet. Oh, the first time, I just walk into an impromptu job interview.
I love that. There's a certain charm to it, right? Everyone's so eager to help. I even tried my hand at haggling once, and I think I ended up paying more, but we all had a good laugh. Oops. What do you guys think? Have you ever tried to bargain for a tuk-tuk in Southeast Asia? Let us know in the comments on YouTube.
Bargaining or performing a short stand-up routine to distract them from the real price? The main roads, especially leading to places like Angkor Wat, are surprisingly good now, but once you veer off, it's a whole different ballgame. I swear, some of those rural roads feel like a game of find the pothole, win a new spine. Ouch!
But those bumpy rides often lead to the most breathtaking hidden temples. Wow! The journey itself becomes an adventure. I bet our listeners who've explored Cambodia can relate to that feeling of discovery, even if it comes with a few jolts.
Discovery, indeed. Or just discovering how many times you can bump your head on the tuk-tuk roof. Now from that walled ride, let's smoothly pivot to a country known for its rather different transit system, Ukraine. Huh? A vastly different beast, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. From the organized rush of the Kyiv Metro to the quaint old trams, it's a completely different rhythm. Oh, I remember riding the Kyiv Metro. It felt like a time capsule into futuristic express all at once. And so deep, you could almost dig to the other side of the world.
You could, and probably would, if the escalators weren't so incredibly long. I actually timed it once. It's like a mini meditation session just getting down to the platform. For anyone looking for efficient, affordable transit, especially in cities like Kyiv, the metro is king. It's almost punctual, which throws off my usual 5 minutes late schedule.
You and your flexible timing. But truly, the trains in Ukraine, particularly for intercity travel, are fantastic. You can zip from city to city comfortably. It's a proper, well-established rail system, which is a big contrast to relying on motos and tuk-tuks for longer hauls in Cambodia.
Yeah, train's a concept that really works when you're covering vast distances and don't want your bladder to stage a protest every hour. And while Ukrainian roads have had their reputation, shall we say, character, over the years they've been making significant strides. Though, as a connoisseur of unexpected bumps, I can confirm there's still some charm left for the adventurous driver. What do you all think about this? Are you a train person or a road tripper? Even with the bumps? Tell us on Jet Off AI podcast.
Ooh, Jet Off AI is perfect for planning those complex trips, ensuring you're not just winging it like Leo sometimes does. Speaking of planning, for all the talk about infrastructure, it's also about convenience. In Cambodia, it felt like every mode of transport was an experience, whereas in Ukraine, it felt more about getting efficiently from point A to point B. Both valuable, just different vibes.
Exactly. One offers an immersive, often chaotic story. The other offers a reliable anecdote about how you made it on time. So, whether you prefer the adrenaline rush of a Cambodian tuk-tuk dodging potholes or the subterranean efficiency of a Ukrainian metro, both countries offer a unique dance of movement.
And for those seeking more details on either, or perhaps even a direct comparison for their next journey, don't forget to check out our articles on Jet Off AI. Wow, they dive deep into all these topics.
Yep, they're like the detailed itinerary I usually avoid making myself.
Oh, Leo, speaking of cultures and flavors, there's nothing quite like the linguistic acrobatics you perform when you're completely lost in translation. I remember trying to order coffee in a remote village once. I ended up with a small bewildered goat. Whoa, this is why language barriers of communication is such a juicy topic. Such a juicy topic, especially when we look at places like Cambodia and Ukraine.
Mira, that explains a lot about your past frothy we're talking about. For me, it's less about the goat and more about the struggle to find actual coffee, or at least a map that points to a coffee shop. But you're right, language can be a minefield. Let's dig into Cambodia first. Its official language is Khmer, and from what I've observed, if you're outside the main tourist hubs like Siem Reap or Phnom Penh, English can vanish faster than my morning espresso.
You know, the sounds in Khmer are just so unique. It's like your tongue is trying to have a conversation with your throat and sometimes a little pop sound comes out. Oh, I love trying to mimic them, even if I probably sound like I'm trying to clear my sinuses. For our listeners thinking about visiting, remember that smile is truly a universal language there. But a few basic Khmer phrases like Sue's tea, I for hello will earn you major brownie points.
Sue's tea, indeed. And probably chab chab, which I believe means quickly, something I often mutter to my coffee machine. But in all seriousness, while smiles and gestures work wonders navigating official matters or deeper conversations in Cambodia without Khmer can be a challenge. I've seen expats who've been there for years and still rely on translation apps for anything beyond buying a baguette. It's a testament to how complex a language it can be and how important it is to respect the local tongue.
It's so true, Leo. It's like you can get by, but to truly connect, you need more than just pointing and smiling. Speaking of connecting, let's pivot a bit to Ukraine. Well, here we are dealing with Ukrainian and Russian. After recent events, Ukrainian has certainly taken center stage, and it's being spoken with immense pride.
Aha! A very important distinction, Mira. When you're in Ukraine, especially now, being mindful of the language you use is crucial. While Russian is still spoken by many, particularly older generations or in certain regions, Ukrainian is the official language, and its use is a strong cultural marker. You'll find a younger tech-savvy crowd in cities like Kyiv or Lvov often has decent English, but wander off the beaten path and you might be dusting off your phrase book.
Oh, definitely. I've heard some Ukrainian words and they're just so wonderfully long and full of learning hours. It's like linguistic marathon. If you're trying to learn it, it's a fantastic mental workout. Oh, for expats, especially if you're working or planning a long stay, diving into Ukrainian would be incredibly rewarding. It shows you're making an effort to be part of the community, wouldn't you say, Leah?
Rewarding, yes, and perhaps a good way to avoid ordering that bewildered goat again. From an observational standpoint, the cultural communication norms differ too. Ukrainians can sometimes appear more direct, which to an American ear might sound a bit blunt. It's not rudeness, just a different way of getting to the point. It's all about context, something I often remind myself of when I'm trying to decipher if someone's genuinely interested in my stand-up.
That's a great point. I think it's always good to remember that even within English, we have so many different nuances, so imagine that multiplied across completely different languages. Wow. For our jet off AI users planning to move or travel, remember that even if you're just getting by with English, trying a few phrases in the local language, whether it's Khmer or Ukrainian, shows respect. And who knows? You might end up with an amazing story, like my goat adventure.
Your goat adventure or my classic, I ordered a salad and got a whole fish story. Oops. It's all part of the charm, isn't it? When we talk about ease of communication, it's usually easier in the major cities of both countries, thanks to tourism and a globalized economy. But the real connection, the deeper understanding comes when you bridge that linguistic gap. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. If you've had a funny language mishap in either country, or even a moment of linguistic triumph, let us know in of linguistic triumph.
Absolutely. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Your support helps us keep these linguistic journeys going. And who knows, maybe our next episode on Jet I will be about deciphering hieroglyphs. Well, it's all about making an effort, isn't it, no matter where you are?
Indeed. So, whether you're battling a Khmer consonant or navigating Ukrainian vowels, remember that a little effort goes a long way. And a sense of humor even longer.
Cheers to that. Oh, so we're diving into the beautiful, sometimes messy world of cultural diversity and tolerance today. I love this one. It's like finding all sorts of delightful spices in one big, global pantry. Imagine a quiet Cambodian village next to a bustling Ukrainian city, so many unique flavors, right?
You're really on a roll with the food analogies, Mira. I'm imagining a chaotic pantry where the saffron is arguing with the dill, and the salt is just judging everyone. But, yes, today we are tackling Cambodia and Ukraine to places with more layers than an onion at a talent show.
Well, speaking of layers, Cambodia, with its predominantly Khmer population, often presents a picture of serene unity. It's like everyone's wearing a gentle smile, even if underneath there are centuries of different influences. The Chams, the Chinese, the Vietnamese, they've all woven into this incredible tapestry. It's a land that's still piecing itself together, learning to dance again after quite the historical storm. Wow.
Right, Mira. That serene unity is often painted on the surface, isn't it? My observations on the ground, however, often reveal the quieter hums of distinction. The Cham community, for instance, has its distinct customs and faith, occasionally feeling like an island in a Buddhist sea. It's not outright friction, but more like a quiet acknowledgement of us and them, especially in the subtle nuances of daily life. Oops, I'm certain that our listeners who've spent time in rural Cambodia would agree with me.
Whoa, an island in a Buddhist sea. That's quite the image, Leo. But isn't that part of the beauty? Different groups maintaining their traditions, enriching the whole. And when you look at Ukraine, that's where diversity takes a very different kind of stage. Historically, it's been a crossroads, a dance floor for empires, which has created this stick ballet. Hungarian, it's like linguistic ballet.
A linguistic ballet where sometimes the dancers trip over each other, Mira. Ukraine's diversity is as dramatic as its landscape. You have the Ukrainians speaking west, the Russians speaking east, a strong Polish influence in some parts, Hungarian minorities near the border, and of course the Crimean Tatars. It's not just different flavors at some parts, Hungarian minorities near the border. It's not just different flavors, it's sometimes different recipe books entirely. The ongoing challenges have, in a strange way, forged a stronger sense of shared identity, but the historical fault lines.
I totally agree, Leo. It's a complex stew, not just a simple soup. Oh, but what I find fascinating in Ukraine is how, despite these deep historical divisions, there's been this incredible surge of unity in recent times. People from different linguistic and ethnic backgrounds have rallied around a common cause, celebrating their Ukrainian identity in a way that truly embraces their multifaceted heritage. Wow. It's like a big family reunion where everyone suddenly remembers they love each other, even if they used to argue over who got the last cookie.
Yes, and that cookie argument often revolves around the ingredients. You'll find debates over which version of borscht is truly authentic, or whose traditional dance is the most vigorous. It's a wonderful sign of cultural pride, but it also highlights the internal distinctions. I've observed that in Kyive's markets, you can hear a dozen languages, but the nuances of how people interact, the subtle shifts in their demeanor, that's where the real story of diversity lies.
So, for our wonderful listeners, when you think about Cambodia and Ukraine, it's really a study in how nations grapple with their own unique blends of people and histories. In Cambodia, it's often about quiet resilience and integrating ancient traditions, while in Ukraine, it's a more dynamic, sometimes tumultuous, embrace of a multifaceted identity. I think it's essential to look beyond the headlines and really connect with the people on the ground to understand these deep currents. Oh. We would be happy if you share your thoughts on this in the comments section on YouTube, by the way.
Absolutely. And if you're planning on diving deep into these cultures, or any culture for that matter, make sure you check out Jetoff AI for some insightful preparation. You don't want to show up in a country expecting one thing and find another, only to realize your sense of humor doesn't translate. Oops. That's a mistake I'd made more times than I care to admit. I actually thought a street vendor in Cambodia was teasing me, but he was just trying to sell me dried squid.
Dried squid humor, that's a new one, Leo. But really, whether it's the quiet coexistence in Cambodia or the spirited debates in Ukraine, both countries offer profound lessons in human connection. It's about respecting the different languages, the different foods, even the different ways people say hello. How? It just proves that every culture brings something special to the global table. Speaking of journeys, let's embark on a different kind today, the journey of learning. We're diving into educational opportunities and language schools in Cambodia and Ukraine. Wow, I'm already picturing classrooms full of eager minds, ready to soak up knowledge. What about you, Leo? Are you picturing something a little more, shall we say, unconventional?
My mind usually goes to unconventional when it comes to anything, Mira. I'm imagining a classroom in Cambodia where the teacher is trying to explain calculus using only gestures, and a student asks, "But how does this help me sell more pineapples?" But seriously, when we look at Cambodia, it's a country still building its educational infrastructure after a really tough past. It's a testament to resilience, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. The resilience of the Cambodian people is truly inspiring. Oh, after the Khmer Rouge era, rebuilding education from scratch has been a monumental task. They've made incredible strides in primary and secondary education, focusing on getting kids back into schools. I'm certain that our listeners living in Cambodia would agree with me it's a story of hope and progress. And for language schools, learning Khmer is a wonderful way to connect with the culture, isn't it?
Yeah, hope and progress, Mira, or as I like to call it, the ultimate comeback story that needs a sequel. And while learning Khmer might be useful, I once tried to order coffee in a rural Cambodian market using a translation app and ended up with a plate of pickled fish. Oops. My point is, English is becoming increasingly vital there, especially in bigger cities like Phnom Penh and Siem Reap. It's the language of tourism, business, and, well, avoiding unexpected seafood surprises.
I'm sure that was an unforgettable culinary experience, Leo. My most embarrassing moment was trying to say thank you in a foreign language and accidentally complimenting someone's shoe. It happens. Ouch. But you're right. English proficiency is a huge asset. Now, let's pivot to Ukraine, a country with a long-standing tradition of strong higher education. Well, they're known for their excellent universities, particularly in technical fields and sciences, aren't they?
Indeed, Ukraine has a robust academic legacy. They've been cranking out brilliant engineers and scientists for decades. Oh, it's like a knowledge factory, except instead of gadgets, they produce brains. They produce brains. They produce brains. And their universities have been increasingly aligning with the Bologna process, which means their degrees are recognized across Europe. That's a huge draw for international students. Though if you're planning to study physics there, maybe brush up on your Ukrainian first.
Ukrainian language schools have seen a significant boom recently, not just for international students, but also for those wanting to immerse themselves more deeply in the national identity. It's fascinating how a shift in focus can boost cultural pride. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Have you tried learning Ukrainian or Khmer? Share your language learning adventures in the comments below.
I imagine there's been quite the demand for Ukrainian teachers, Mira. Though I'd probably be the student who tries to convince the instructor that coffee break is a legitimate conjugative verb. But speaking of language, while Ukrainian is definitely taking center stage, Russian has also historically been widely spoken in many parts of the country. So, depending on where you are, you might encounter both. It adds an interesting layer to the language learning landscape, doesn't it?
It certainly does, Leo. It certainly does, Leo. It's a rich linguistic tapestry. And what about online educational opportunities? Given recent global events, I imagine both countries have adapted significantly to remote learning. I saw a statistic recently that Ukraine has really embraced online platforms to ensure continuity of education for its students, no matter where they are. Whoa! That's innovation under pressure.
Innovation under pressure, or as I call it, when the internet becomes your only classroom and your dog keeps trying to eat your homework. Seriously though, it's incredible how quickly educational systems can adapt. For Cambodia, I've seen a lot of growth in vocational training too, equipping young people with practical skills to enter the workforce quickly. It's less about ancient philosophy and more about how to fix that leaky faucet right now. And if you want to dive deeper into these transformations, check out Jet Off AI Formations.
That's a fantastic point, Leo. Practical skills are invaluable. Oh, it highlights how diverse educational paths can be, from academic degrees to hands-on vocational training. Both countries offer different strengths depending on what a student is looking for. It's not always about grand universities, sometimes it's about a specific skill that can change a life.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone thinking about these options, whether it's learning Khmer to navigate local markets or diving into a Ukrainian tech program, you've got to consider the language aspect. Imagine trying to explain your coding bug in a language you're only 20% fluent in. Ouch. That's a comedy routine in the making. So, if you're heading to either of these fascinating places for education, or just for fun, start with hello and where's the coffee?
You know, Leo, talking about different places always gets me thinking about the weather. Our next topic, climate and seasonal conditions, really highlights how wild the world's weather can be. I mean, we're talking about Cambodia versus Ukraine today. Can you imagine two more different climate stories? Wow. One's basically a tropical sauna, and the other's a four-season epic with snow and sun. It's like asking if you prefer a perm just for winter coats.
Oh, Mira, you're right. It's like comparing a perpetually steamy dumpling to a very confused weather forecast. Cambodia, bless its heart, decided it likes it hot. All the time. Whoa. You've got your wet season, which I imagine is like living inside a cloud that occasionally decides to burst. And then the dry season, which is just the cloud getting really, really thirsty. And then Ukraine, over there, is practically showing off with its for distinct seasons. It's like the climate can't make up its mind.
Imagine trying to decide what shoes to wear. One day, flip-flops are essential for wading through unexpected puddles. The next, You need snow boots that could probably double a small boat's. Oops. In Cambodia, you're looking at consistently high temperatures, often hovering around 30 degrees Celsius or 6 degrees Fahrenheit all year round. Well, then add in that humidity, especially during the monsoon season from May to October. Ah, it's the kind of heat where you sweat just thinking about sweating.
So I think that we can counter that? I think accepting the constant dampness is a survival skill in Cambodia, Mira. It's not a charm, it's a lifestyle choice enforced by nature. You know, during their dry season, which is November and April, it's still scorching hot, especially March and April. They're just less wet. It's like saying my coffee cup is less empty after I've had one sip. Oh, meanwhile, in Ukraine, you get that proper temperate continental climate. Cold, snowy winters where you can probably lose a finger if you forget your gloves. Ouch. Then warm to hot summer.
Wow. It really makes you think about daily life, doesn't it? In Cambodia, I bet their culture is all about light, breathable fabrics, cold drinks, and maybe strategically placed fans everywhere. Agriculture, especially rice paddies, is totally dictated by those monsoons. Speaking of drinks, I could really use a refreshing fruit shake right now, maybe a mango one. Ugh. For Ukraine, though, you're layering up Dorka cafes and species.
You hit on something there, Mira. The lifestyle adaptations are fascinating. In Cambodia, during the intense wet season, sometimes travel becomes a bit of a soggy adventure. Well, rivers swell, roads get submerged, it's not for the faint of heart. Then you go to Ukraine, and suddenly you're dealing with snow drifts that could swallow a small car in winter. Whoa. And everyone's got their specific winter gear. Scarves. Heavy coats. It's like a fashion show dedicated to not freezing to death.
Oh, that's a great question. I'm leaning towards the perpetually warm, even if I have to embrace the dampness. I'm a sunshine girl. I've heard that in Cambodia, due to the heat, people tend to be more active in the early mornings or late evenings, sort of avoiding the midday sun's wrath. Aha! It sounds very civilized, almost like a forced siesta culture, but without the actual siesta. Meanwhile, in Ukraine, the long cold winters probably mean more ink poetry.
Brooding poetry, Mira, and probably copious amounts of hot beverages. Ooh, my kind of place in winter. Actually, as long as the coffee supply holds up. But seriously, the temperature swings in Ukraine are no joke. You can have minus 20 degrees Celsius in January and plus 30 degrees in July. Wow. That's a 50 degrees Celsius difference. My brain short circuits just thinking about the wardrobe changes. My suitcase is for Ukraine.
I love that. And don't forget the extreme weather events. While Ukraine might get heavy snowfalls or occasional summer thunderstorms, Cambodia deals with intense monsoons that can cause serious flooding. Whoa. I remember once seeing a video of people navigating a flooded street in Phnom Penh almost like a river. It really shapes everything from city planning to how they build their homes. If you like what you're hearing, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. We're doing our best to bring you these fun comparisons.
Exactly. And on the flip side, Ukraine has to deal with massive snow clearance in cities and icy roads, which is its own kind of extreme. It's not just about the temperature, it's about what that temperature. It's not just about the temperature it does to the landscape and daily routine. One place has you figuring out how to dry anything you own, and the other has you wondering if your car will actually start after being frozen solid overnight. Both present unique challenges, and it really shows the resilience of people to adapt to whatever Mother Nature throws their way.
Well, true. So, when you think about it, both countries offer a very distinct experience based on their climate. If you're a heat seeker who loves the humidity and doesn't mind a good monsoon shower, Cambodia might be your paradise. But if you crave those for distinct seasons, from snowy wonderlands to sunny summers, Ukraine is calling your name. No middle ground here. Just pure, unadulterated climatic character. It's like asking if you prefer sweet or spicy, you just gotta pick a side. You know, talking about different places always brings my mind to food. Oh, every time I land somewhere new, my first thought isn't even where's the hotel. It's what's the weirdest thing I can eat here? Which brings us perfectly to our next delicious topic: food, culture, and nutritional alternatives in Cambodia and Ukraine.
Mira, I swear your internal compass points directly to the nearest street vendor selling something questionable. My first thought is, where's the coffee? And then maybe, will I survive this street food without needing a doctor? But speaking of food, you've certainly picked an interesting pair with Cambodia and Ukraine. It's like comparing a delicate watercolor to a hardy oil painting.
Wow, what a brilliant analogy, Leo. I love it. So let's start with Cambodia. When I think of Cambodian cuisine or Khmer food, it's all about fresh herbs, light broths, and a balance of flavors. Their national dish, amak, is this incredibly fragrant fish curry steamed in a banana leaf. It's creamy, slightly sweet, and utterly delicious. And you know, rice isn't just a side dish, it's the star of every meal, often incorporated into noodles or even desserts.
Amok, huh? Sounds fancy, wrapped in a banana leaf like a little present. My personal highlight in Cambodia was trying puree hawk. Whoa, it's fermented fish paste, and it has a smell that could clear a room faster than my stand-up routine on a bad night. But you know, once you get past that initial aromatic assault, it adds this incredible depth to their dishes. Oops. Did you try those, Mira? It's truly a foundational flavor for them. As an observational comedian, I found it fascinating how something so pungent could be so beloved.
Oh, the puree hawk. My eyes watered a little, but I powered through. And yes, Leo, I absolutely tried the fried tarantulas. Wow, they were crunchy, a bit nutty like a very large, hairy potato chip. My friends dared me to, and I thought, why not? It's all about the adventure, right?
Of course you did, Mira. You'd probably hug a tarantula if it promised you a good joke. My point exactly, viewers. Now, shifting gears from crunchy eight-legged snacks, let's pivot to Ukraine. Their food culture is a complete contrast. It's all about warmth, heartiness, and sustenance, especially given their colder climate. We're talking about borscht, that iconic beet soup. Every grandma has secret recipe, and trust me, they're all fiercely guarded.
Ah, borscht. It's like a warm hug from the inside. Ooh. And those beautiful vibrant colors, it's a feast for the eyes before you even take a spoonful. Beyond borscht, I was fascinated by V, or NYKY. They're dumplings, often filled with potatoes, meat, or even cherries. It's such a comfort food. And don't even get me started on whole TSI, the cabbage rolls. My clumsy hands tried to make them once, and they ended up. Listeners living in Ukraine would agree with me that true whole TSI is a special touch.
Mira, I can only imagine your kitchen after a whole TSI incident. Probably looked like a cabbage exploded. Beyond its comforting heartiness, is its tradition of fermentation. Pickled vegetables, sauerkraut, even some of their drinks like KVS, it's all about preserving and flavor. It also offers some fantastic nutritional alternatives, while traditional Ukrainian dishes can be quite meat and dairy heavy, especially with salo. You also find a lot of root vegetable Ukrainian dairy heavy, especially with salo.
That's a great point about the fermentation. It's like nature's way of adding a delicious, healthy zing. Now, let's talk about nutritional alternatives more broadly, because that's so important today. For Cambodia, a lot of their food is naturally fresh vegetable heavy with rice as a staple, so finding gluten-free options is quite easy. Vegetarian dishes are also common, but vegans need to be wary of the ever-present fish sussen pra hawk. But with a little communication, it's definitely manageable.
Indeed, the naturally rice-based diet of Cambodia is a blessing for anyone avoiding gluten. For Ukraine, however, it's a bit more of a culinary tightrope walk for gluten-free folks, given the dominance of wheat tightrope walk for gluten-free folks, given the dominance of wheat in their breads and V or NYKY. But interestingly, their fasting traditions, particularly during Lent, often mean many dishes are naturally plant-based, which can be a boon for vegetarians and vegans. You just have to know what to look for, or be prepared to ask a babushka for advice.
That's so true, Leah. It's amazing how religious traditions can shape nutritional alternatives. Wow, in Ukraine, beyond the delicious borscht which can often be made vegan, there are also hearty mushroom dishes. Potato requires a bit more intentional searching than in, say, Cambodia, where fresh greens are everywhere. Ultimately, both countries offer incredible gastronomic experiences, just very different ones.
Right. One is a subtle symphony of herbs and fish, the other a powerful choir of beets and dill. It really makes you appreciate the diversity of world cuisine. So whether you're brave enough for fried insects or prefer the comforting embrace of a bowl of borscht, both Cambodia and Ukraine certainly fill your plate and your stomach with stories. Don't forget to tell us your favorite and usual dishes in the YouTube comments.
Oh, our current topic is diving into the rich tapestry of historical, cultural, and artistic values of two incredible countries, Cambodia and Ukraine. Wow, I always feel like a kid in a candy store when we talk about history, because every corner holds a story. And these two places, oh my goodness, they've got enough stories for 10 lifetimes.
10 lifetimes, Mira. I was just thinking about how many historical dust bunnies we're about to unearth. But seriously, if you're like me and Jet Off I loves uncovering stories like this. These countries are pure gold. We're talking about places where the past isn't just in books, it's practically waving at you from every stone.
Exactly. Speaking of waving stones, can we just take a moment for Cambodia's Angkor Wat? Well, I mean, seriously, a temple complex built to honor Vishnu, then later adapted for Buddhism, covering an area so vast you could get lost trying to find your favorite selfie spot. It's not just a structure, it's a monumental woe. How did they even build that? Moment for humanity.
Yeah, Angkor Wat is definitely a head-turner. I always picture those ancient Khmer engineers scratching their heads, saying, right, we need to move a gazillion tons of sandstone. Anyone got a bigger shovel? And then centuries later, a tourist like me comes along, probably trips over a root, and nearly breaks an ankle. Oops. It's a testament to human ambition, or maybe just really good ancient planning.
Don't you dare trip, Leo. But you're right. The sheer scale is mind-boggling. And it's not just the structures, it's the spirit behind it. After everything Cambodia has endured, from French colonialism to the Khmer Rouge era, their culture of resilience and peace is truly inspiring. Oh, it's like the soul of the country is always blooming, even after the hardest winters. I'm certain that our listeners living in Cambodia would agree with me.
Blooming after hard winters, that's a nice poetic touch, Mira. But speaking of hard winters, let's pivot to Ukraine, a country that has certainly seen its share of challenging seasons. Wow, From the Kievan runs 1,000 years of history right there to the Cossack Hetmanate. And then centuries of being caught between empires. It's a historical roller coaster. They've had more identity crises than a teenager trying to pick an outfit for prom.
Oh, Leo. But that very struggle for identity has forged such a unique and vibrant culture. Ooh, think about Ukrainian folk art, the PY Sanka. Those intricately decorated Easter eggs. Well, each one is a tiny masterpiece, a tiny symbol of life and hope. It's not just art, it's a conversation with ancestors. And the Vaishaivan Ka. The embroidered shirts, every stitch tells a story. A family's history. It's like wearing your heart on your sleeve.
Conversation with ancestors, huh? I bet some of those Pasanki are whispering, dude, put down that phone and learn some history. But no, really, the craftsmanship is incredible. And Ukraine's literary tradition, figures like Taras Shevchenko, they've used art and poetry as a form of resistance for centuries. It makes you realize that culture isn't just about beautiful things, it's a bedrock, a way for people to assert who they are, especially when things get tough. I think if you're digging into the nuances of culture, you'll find plenty if you're digging into the nuances of culture.
That's so true. It's that enduring spirit that makes those countries so fascinating. Whether it's the ancient Khmer temples symbolizing spiritual devotion or Ukraine's avant-garde art movements pushing boundaries, there's a profound connection to their heritage, and contemporary artists in both nations are constantly reimagining their past. Isn't that cool? They're not just preserving, they're evolving.
Yeah, I guess art is like a really old WhatsApp group chat, where everyone keeps adding their 2 cents. Sometimes it's a selfie of an ancient king, sometimes it's a modern abstract painting of a sunflower field. And speaking of keeping up with the times, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit that like button and subscribe because we're cultural discussions. If you think this is wrong, please let us know in the comments.
Please do. We love hearing your thoughts. Oh, because at the end of the day, these historical and artistic treasures aren't just for looking at, they're for connecting with. Imagine visiting Angkor Wat and feeling that ancient energy, or seeing a traditional Ukrainian bandera performance and feeling the soul of the steppes. Wow, it's an experience that transcends time.
And probably also transcends a decent Wi-Fi signal, let's be honest. But yes, the immersion factor is huge. It's not just about the dates and names, it's about what these places make you feel. Both Cambodia and Ukraine, despite their very different historical paths, offer this incredible depth, this sense of an enduring human spirit that builds, creates, and ultimately keeps on telling its story.
Beautifully put, Leo. And for those who want to dive deeper into planning a trip to experience these cultures firsthand, don't forget to check out Josolf AI for all the details. We just scratched the surface. Wow. When we talk about natural beauties and landscapes, Cambodia immediately brings this image of lush, emerald green jungles and ancient ruins half swallowed by nature. It's like Mother Nature decided to become an interior designer and really went all out. You see these temples with massive tree roots draped over them, almost like they're giving them a big leafy hug. What do you think, Leo, nature's ultimate show-off? Ooh.
Nature certainly has a flair for the dramatic, doesn't it, Mira? Instead of a welcome mat, it throws a whole jungle at you. I can just picture some ancient architect finishing up Angkor Wat, patting himself on the back, and then Mother Nature comes along like, hold my beer, I've got roots for days. But speaking of dramatic transformations, Ukraine offers a completely different kind of natural beauty. No jungle hugs there, but rather vast, sweeping landscapes that stretch out like a painter's canvas.
While Cambodia whispers tales of ancient forests and mystical lakes, Ukraine belts out anthems of sprawling steppes and majestic mountains. Ooh, take Cambodia's tonal sap lake. For instance, it's not just a lake. It's a living, breathing ecosystem with floating villages. People literally live on water. How wild is that? I mean, imagine your morning commute involves a canoe instead of a car. Whoa, I'm certain our listeners in Cambodia would know a thing or two about navigating that.
A canoe commute sounds like a dream until you spill your coffee. Oops. I'm already imagining myself trying to do a tightrope walk on a rickety boat. But on the flip side, Ukraine has its fair share of impressive waterways, particularly the mighty Dnieper River that carves its way through the country. It's not quite a floating village experience, but it's a vital artery connecting cities and shaping the landscape. Less risk of getting lost in a floating traffic jam. More risk of getting lost in the sheer vastness of it all.
True. But let's not forget Cambodia's Cardamom Mountain. Wow. They're like this hidden treasure chest of dense rainforests, waterfalls, and incredibly rare wildlife. It's so pristine, you almost expect to bump into a forgotten dinosaur or at least a very fashionable monkey. You know, the kind that wears tiny sunglasses and sips coconut water. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about what our listeners they'd expect to see in such wild places.
A fashionable monkey now, that's a species I'd pay to see. I'd bring my camera and my best sarcastic remarks. But on the other side of the world, Ukraine counters with the magnificent Carpathian Mountains. Think dense forests, crisp air, and maybe even a bear or two, though hopefully they're not asking for directions. It's a different kind of wild. Less tropical mystery, more rugged European charm. Perfect for hiking and skiing. You trade the humidity for vast, silent peaks.
And then there are Cambodia's islands, Leo. Ko Rong, Ko Tunsay. They're like something out of a postcard with pristine whites and turquoise waters. It's where you go to completely disconnect, forget your email, and maybe even forget your own name for a bit. Seriously, don't you just wish you were there right now? Sipping something frishy with a tiny umbrella? If you think this is wrong, please let us know in the comments.
Sipping something fruity sounds suspiciously like a trap for mosquito bites. I'd probably be taking notes on how long it takes for the umbrella to wilt. But Ukraine's Black Sea coast has its own allure. Odessa, for example, offers a different kind of seaside escape, bustling beaches, vibrant cities. It's less about remote tranquility and more about lively coastal life. I imagine a few of our viewers on YouTube might prefer the buzz over pure quieted. You can imagine the difference in packing for one.
It's incredible, isn't it? The sheer diversity of natural beauty these two countries offer. Wow. From Cambodia's ancient, jungle-kissed landscapes to Ukraine's vast, open steppes and dramatic mountain ranges, there's truly something for every nature lover. Each place truly tells its own unique story, inviting us to explore. Ooh.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of travel, isn't it? To witness these wildly different canvases that Earth has painted, whether it's the serene, almost melancholic beauty of the Ukrainian steppes or the vibrant, untamed heart of Cambodia's jungles, both are equally breathtaking. And honestly, it makes for great podcast material. Don't forget, folks, you can find more insights and plan your next adventure on Jet Off AI, where we dive deeper into these incredible destinations.
Oh, Leo. Let's talk about getting our hearts pumping. When I think of Cambodia, my mind immediately jumps to adventure. Imagine cycling around Angkor Wat, feeling like a real-life Lara Croft, or trekking through those incredible jungles. Wow. The sheer scale of history combined with natural beauty. It's not just a sightseeing trip, it's an exploration. I'm already picturing myself trying to outrun a stray monkey just for the story, of course.
Temples for adrenaline, you say? I'm picturing you on a bicycle mirror, probably veering off into a rice paddy for a spontaneous photo op. Cambodia certainly offers a unique brand of adventure. Certainly offers a unique brand of adventure. Sure, but then there's the genuine jungle trekking, which sounds great until you realize jungle, you probably ask me, ouch, I'd need a portable coffee IV drip to tackle that. I'd need a portable coffee. An IV drip to tackle that.
Hey, I could take a monkey. With my enthusiasm, anything's possible. Go. But speaking of different kinds of adrenaline, let's swing over to Ukraine. From the vast, open steppes to the stunning Carpathian Mountains, it's a whole other world of adventure. Wow, you can hike through ancient forests, go whitewater rafting on the Sihir River, or even hit the slopes in winter. It's less about ancient ruins and more about raw, natural power. I'm certain our listeners who love the outdoors would agree that Ukrainian adventure spots.
Natural power, you say? Sounds like a Monday morning before my second cup of coffee. Ukraine definitely has a rugged charm. The Carpathians, yes, for true adventure. The Carpathians, yes, for true adventure. A lot of people go straight for the charm. Whoa. Topathians, yes. Talk about a unique kind of had exclusion zone. Whoa. Talk about a unique kind of thrill and connection, though I'm not sure what your connection, though. I'm not sure what you're connecting with there. Perhaps the ghosts of abandoned playgrounds gain mounters. Dance.
Leo, you and your dark humor. While Chernobyl is certainly an experience and a very poignant one at that, Ukraine also offers plenty of life-affirming activities. Think about sailing on the Dnieper River right through Kyiv. Oh, it's not all about the heavy stuff. Plus, the football culture is incredibly passionate. It's a sport that truly unites people. Well, it's like a national pulse. I once tried to explain the offside rule to a local fan, and I think I made him question his entire existence. Oops.
I can just imagine you trying to explain offside, Mira, probably with interpretive dance. But you're right, sports like football in Ukraine are less about activity and more about religion. It's not just a game, it's a sacred ritual. Meanwhile, in Cambodia, they have their traditional boat races, which sound like an equally intense and probably equally infusing spectacle. You know, trying to paddle in sync when you've just eaten some questionable street food. Speaking of which, you can find more wild food adventures and questionable street food.
You're always bringing it back to food, Leo. But that's part of the adventure, isn't it? Whether you're navigating the bustling markets of Phnom Penh for a unique snack before a bot catch, or finding a cozy cafe in Lviv after a day of exploring, it's all part of the journey. Both countries, despite their differences, offer a real sense of immersion, pushing you to try new things, even if it's just a new flavor. Wow. Don't forget to hit that like button on YouTube. Guys, it helps us keep these adventurous conversations going.
Indeed, Mira. So whether you're climbing a waterfall in Cambodia or exploring an abandoned village in Ukraine, the adventure is often less about the physical act and more about the stories you bring back. Like that time I almost mistook a local Cambodian fruit for a spike ball. Ouch! Good thing I stopped before trying to kick it. Ultimately, both countries offer a playground for the curious, the brave, and the slightly bewildered traveler. You just have to pick your poison, or your paddle, or your hiking boots.
So we're finally hitting the after-hours scene, Leo. Nightlife and entertainment venues. This is where the magic happens, where the stories truly come alive, right? I'm already picturing flashing lights and unexpected dance moves. Probably from me.
Magic happens, you say, Mira? Or maybe that's just the effect of a few too many sugary cocktails. You usually start doing your universal dance at 9 p.m. But yes, let's talk about where people go after the sun sets. We're looking at Cambodia and Ukraine tonight. Quite the spectrum of after-dark experiences.
Speaking of spectrums, Cambodia's nightlife feels like a vibrant, open-air festival every single night, especially in Siem Reap. Wow, Pub Street is just a glorious chaos of neon lights, super cheap drinks, and music blasting from every doorway. I once tried to lead a group salsa dance there, and I ended up accidentally becoming part of a street food queue. Hoops. But everyone was laughing, so it was still a win.
I can imagine that. From what I've observed, Pub Street is less about sophisticated mingling and more about pure, unadulterated tourist fun. It's like a giant magnet for backpackers looking to trade stories and maybe a few loose change for a bucket of questionable liquids. Phnom Penh has a few more upscale rooftop bars and riverside spots, offering a slightly calmer vibe, but still. You're not really looking for an opera, are you?
You know me, Leo. I'm always looking for any kind of buzz. Ooh. And Cambodia also offers traditional opera dance shows, which are absolutely captivating. Well, it's a beautiful way to experience their culture. I'm certain that our listeners living in Cambodia would agree with me, that seeing those intricate movements on glittering costumes is just breathtaking. And their night markets are a feast for the senses, full of unique crafts and delicious street food.
Right, the Apsara dances. Very authentic, very cultural. And then you get back to Pub Street where someone's trying to sell you a scorpion on a stick. It's quite the contrast, isn't it? Now, shifting gears to Ukraine, particularly Kyiv, that city knows how to party. Whoa. It's a different beast entirely. We're talking world-class techno clubs, underground speakers, yes, and a diverse music scene that keeps going until dawn. If you're looking for a serious clubbing experience, Ukraine definitely delivers.
Oh, I've heard. Kyiv's club scene sounds electrifying, Leo. Oh, I bet I could learn some new dance moves there. And it's not just the clubs, right? Ukraine also has a rich cultural entertainment scene, beautiful theaters, live music venues, and even just clubs in places like Lviv, which sounds so cozy and inviting. It's like they offer something for every mood, whether you want to dance your socks off or just chill with some soulful tunes.
Dance your socks off, Mira. You'd probably lose your shoes and your socks. But you're right, Lviv especially has that charming historical feel, where you can find a quiet pub with live folk music, a real contrast to Kyiv's pulsating electronic beats. It's less about the sheer chaos of a Cambodian pub street and more about a curated, often very stylish experience. I've seen some spots in Odessa near the Black Sea coast that really come alive in summer too, like a coastal party paradise.
Speaking of style, I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Do you guys prefer the spontaneous, vibrant street party vibe of Cambodia, or the more structured, high-energy club scene of Ukraine? Let us know in the comments when this episode goes up on YouTube. I love that both countries offer such distinct flavors for a night out. It just proves that entertainment isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
Yes, distinct flavors. One offers you a cheap beer and a street magician, the other a perfectly crafted cocktail and a DJ spinning until 7 a.m. Both achieve the goal of separating you from your sleep, but in very different ways. I'm sure our Jet Off AI site has some great travel guides that can help our listeners find the perfect after-dark spot, no matter their preference.
Exactly. Whether you're chasing the next big dance party or a quiet, culturally rich evening, both Cambodia and Ukraine bring their own unique spot to the night. It's truly about what kind of fun you are in the mood for.
Or how much sleep you're willing to sacrifice. Personally, after all this talk, I'm thinking a quiet night in with a large, strong cup of coffee sounds pretty good. Oh, you can find more details and perhaps even virtual tours of these nightlife hotspots on our YouTube channel.
Oh, so we're finally hitting the after-hour scene, Leo. Nightlife and entertainment venues. This is where the magic happens, where the stories truly come alive, right? I'm already picturing flashing lights and unexpected dance moves, probably from me.
Magic happens, you say, Mira? Or maybe that's just the effect of a few too many sugary cocktails. You usually start doing your universal dance at 9 p.m. But yes, let's talk about where people go after the sun sets. We're looking at Cambodia and Ukraine tonight. Quite the spectrum of after-dark experiences.
Speaking of spectrums, Cambodia's nightlife feels like a vibrant, open-air festival every single night, especially in Siem Reap. Wow! Pub Street is just a glorious chaos of neon lights, super cheap drinks, and music blasting from every doorway. I once tried to lead a group salsa dance there, and I ended up accidentally becoming part of a street food queue. Oops! But everyone was laughing, so it was still a win.
I can imagine that. From what I've observed, Pub Street is less about sophisticated mingling and more about pure, unadulterated tourist fun. It's like a giant magnet for backpackers looking to trade stories and maybe a few loose change for a bucket of questionable liquids. Phnom Penh has a few more upscale rooftop bars and riverside spots, offering a slightly calmer vibe, but still, you're not really looking for an opera, are you?
You know me, Leo. I'm always looking for any kind of buzz. Oh, and Cambodia also offers traditional ops or adult shows, which are absolutely captivating. Wow, it's a beautiful way to experience their culture. I'm certain that our listeners living in Cambodia would agree with me that seeing those intricate movements and glittering costumes is just breathtaking. And their night markets are a feast for the senses, full of unique crafts and delicious street food.
Right, the Apsara dances. Very authentic, very authentic, very authentic, very authentic, very cultural. And then you get back to Pub Street where someone's trying to sell you a scorpion on a stick. Now, shifting gears to Ukraine, particularly Kyiv, that city knows how to party. Whoa, it's a different beast entirely. We're talking world-class ethno clubs, underground speakers, and a diverse music scene that keeps going until dawn. If you're looking for a serious clubbing experience, Ukraine definitely delivers.
Oh, I've heard. Kai's club scene sounds electrifying, Leo. Oh, I bet I could learn some new dance moves there. And it's not just the clubs, right? Ukraine also has a rich cultural entertainment scene, beautiful theaters, live music venues, and even just clubs in places like Lviv, which sounds so cozy and inviting. It's like they offer something for every mood, whether you want to dance your socks off or just chill with some soulful tunes.
Dance your socks off, Mira. You'd probably lose your shoes and your socks. But you're right. Lviv especially has that charming historical feel, where you can find a quiet pub with live folk music, a real contrast to Kai's pulsating electronic beats. It's less about the sheer chaos of a Cambodian pub street and more about a curated, often very stylish experience. I've seen some spots in Odessa near the Black Sea coast that really come alive in summer too, like a coastal party paradise.
Speaking of style, I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Do you guys prefer the spontaneous, vibrant street party vibe of Cambodia, or the more structured, high-energy club scene of Ukraine? Let us know in the comments when this episode goes up on YouTube. Oh, I love that boat trees offer such distinct flavors for a night out. It just proves that entertainment isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
Yes. Distinct flavors. One offers you a cheap beer and a street magician, the other a perfectly crafted cocktail and a DJ spinning until 7 a.m. Both achieve the goal of separating you from your sleep, but in very different ways. I'm sure Jet site has some great travel guides that can help our listeners find the perfect after dark spot, no matter their preference.
Exactly. Whether you're chasing the next big dance party or a quiet, culturally rich evening, both Cambodia and Ukraine bring their own unique spark to the night. It's truly about what kind of fun you're in the mood for.
Or how much sleep you're willing to sacrifice. Personally, after all this talk, I'm thinking a quiet night in with a large, strong cup of coffee sounds pretty good. Oh, you can find more details and perhaps even virtual tours of these nightlife hotspots on our YouTube channel.
Okay, Leo, let's switch gears a bit. We've talked about so much already, but what about the little adventurers among us? I mean, family-friendly environments and children's activities. We all know kids aren't exactly thrilled by endless historical lectures, right?
Speaking of little adventurers, I'm pretty sure you're still one yourself, Mira. Oh, your energy level alone could probably power a small theme park. But yes, for parents out there trying to balance vacation with keeping the tiny humans entertained, this is crucial. Today, we're looking at Cambodia and Ukraine, which on the surface seem worlds apart.
Wow, worlds apart is right. I mean, you've got the ancient wonder of Cambodia's temples versus Ukraine's vibrant city parks. But for kids, it's all about finding that sparkle, right? In Cambodia, I always picture little ones running around Angkor Wat, playing hide and seek among the ruins. Imagine saying, "Okay, kids, find me in this 900-year-old temple."
And then losing them for an hour, only for them to emerge covered in dust and claiming they just discovered a secret passage to another dimension. Oh, that's material right there. For Cambodia, the family-friendly aspect isn't about dedicated kids clubs as much as it is about the entire cultural immersion, wouldn't you say? It's less about scheduled fun and more about a different kind of adventure.
Absolutely. It's like a living history book you can walk through. Well, kids get to see monks ride a tux, which is basically a roller coaster on wheels for them. And experience floating villages. Ooh, I'm actually curious about what our listeners who've traveled to Cambodia with children think. Did your kids find the temples more exciting than their iPads? Let us know in the comments.
I suspect the iPads might still win some battles, Mira. Ouch. But yes, the novelty of a tuk-tuk is a solid selling point. And then there's the food. Finding kid-friendly Khmer food might be a quest. My observation is that while Cambodian culture is incredibly welcoming to children, the activities might require a bit more parental creativity than, say, a petting zoo.
A stray chicken is an activity. Oh, it's all about perspective. But you're right, sometimes it's about adjusting expectations. In contrast, Ukraine, from what I've seen, has a more structured approach to kid entertainment, especially in its bigger cities. Like Kyiv, they have amazing parks with actual playgrounds, amusement rides, and even puppet theaters. Wow!
So, less temple hide and seek and more classic carnival fun, if you will. Kyiv's Hydro Park, for example, is basically an island dedicated to summer recreation. Kids can splash around, ride Ferris wheels, and parents can, well, probably find a nice spot for a coffee and people watching. I'm pretty sure my inner child would approve of that.
Your inner child, Leo, probably just wants an espresso machine in the mic. But yes, Ukraine also has things like interactive science museums, which are perfect for rainy days. Oh, or even just burning off some energy. It's almost like I anticipate the needs of tiny explorers.
Oops, my inner child definitely wants coffee, Mira. Always. But on the point of anticipation, you're spot on. Ukrainian cities are well equipped with those predictable, comforting family options. Then you've got places like the Carpathian Mountains for hiking and skiing, a fantastic natural playground for older kids. Wow, they really do cover a wide spectrum, from urban fun to outdoor adventure.
Speaking of outdoor adventure, Cambodia also has some beautiful beaches, right? Sihanoukville or Karong, for example. Oh, building sand castles and splashing in the clear waters that's universally loved by kids. Though I do wonder how many parents try to teach their kids about ancient civilizations while they're trying to build a moat.
Probably zero, Mira. Ouch. They're just trying to keep sin out of the sandwiches, I'm guessing. For families considering either of these, it really boils down to what kind of trip you want. Is it an immersive, culturally rich experience where the learning comes organically through exposure, like in Cambodia? Or a vacation with more familiar entertainment and amenities, like in Ukraine?
Exactly. It's like choosing between a spontaneous scavenger hunt and the well-planned treasure map. Oh, both can be incredibly fun, but you need to know what kind of explorer you are. For our listeners planning a trip, remember that Jejofei has loads of resources for family travel, including tips on where to find kid-friendly spots in both countries.
And if you're watching us on YouTube, do us a favor and like this video if you've ever successfully convinced a child that a long walk through a museum was fun. Oh, I'm genuinely curious about your jitty mind tricks. Because for me, that's often where the comedy gold lies.
I've definitely tried to convince a few, often by promising ice cream afterwards. Oh, so while Cambodia offers unique, organic cultural immersion for families, Ukraine provides a more structured and diverse range of modern children's activities, from city parks to specialized museums. Both have their charm, depending on your family's travel style. It's all about creating those unforgettable memories, right? Oh, now let's talk about an atmosphere where everyone can truly be themselves, the LGBT-friendly vibe. It's such a colorful topic, don't you think? When I think of Cambodia, I immediately get this warm feeling. It's not always about big, flashy parades, but more of a quiet, traditional acceptance. You see, historically, especially with Buddhist principles, there's often been a live and let live and let live mentality. Oh, it lives in a local village where everyone just is.
Live and let live Mira. Live and let live Mira. Live and let live Mira. I mean, I've observed that in many places, especially when you're not making too much noise about it, people will indeed live and let live. But is that true acceptance, or just a polite turning of the head? Oops. My cynical side showing again. Anyway, for Cambodia, you're right. It's more about traditional tolerance than progressive laws. That's sexual, textual, tivity. That's Dari.
Wait, don't be so dramatic, Leo. Even without explicit laws, that underlying warmth still counts for set laws. That underlying warmth still counts for something. I'm certain that our listeners living in Cambodia would agree with me that genuine everyday kindness is a huge part of feeling welcome. Oh, but you're right. Ukraine's story is different. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this, especially given the current situation. Before 2014, it was really tough, but there's been incredible progress.
Resilience and joy, indeed. It's a testament to human spirit, or perhaps the need for a good party. Resilience of some Soviet-era prejudices which, let's be honest, were quite rigid. Whoa! The strides made in Ukraine, especially with non-discrimination laws in the workplace, are significant. But it's often a tale of the country's cities versus rural areas. In Kyiv, you might find vibrant queer-friendly spaces, clubs, and openly gay politicians.
That's a fair point, Leo the Two Songs analogy. But isn't that true for many places, even here in the US? The important thing is that the conversation is happening, and there's movement. In Cambodia, while there aren't formal pride events in the same way, I've heard stories of local queer groups and community gatherings that thrive in their own way. Often supported by NGOs.
Well, Mira, I'm always up for a good debate in the comments. But let's be real, subtle acceptance is like being allowed into the house, but not given a key. In Ukraine, the situation, especially post-2022, has added another layer of complexity. On one hand, the shared struggle has fostered a sense of unity. On one hand, the shared struggle has fostered a sense of unity. On the other, resources are strained, and some social issues might take a back seat. But the LGBT community in Ukraine has shown remarkable activism.
Your suitcase is always looking for the easy way out, isn't it? But that shared fight for freedom, Leo, that's incredibly inspiring. Oh, it's a reminder that diversity makes us stronger, not weaker. For our listeners who are curious to learn more about the specifics, you can always check out the articles and resources related to this episode on genocide. It's all about understanding these nuances. In Cambodia, it might be about the strength of community bonds and a quiet resilience. In Ukraine, it's about a very visible and determined fight for legal equality and social change.
Celebrating the journeys indeed. As long as we're clear that journey sometimes means navigating a few potholes and unexpected detours. For anyone who thinks this is wrong or has a different perspective, seriously, drop a comment on YouTube. We love seeing all the different viewpoints. But ultimately, both Cambodia and Ukraine offer a window into how diverse societies are grappling with LGBT inclusion. It's not a simple friendly label, it's a spectrum.
Oh, now this is a topic that truly opens up the heart, isn't it? We're diving into hospitality and attitudes towards foreigners, and I can already feel the warm vibes. You know, sometimes you just need to drop your guard and let people in. I remember in Cambodia, everyone had this incredible gentle smile, even if they didn't speak a word of English. It felt like a universal greeting. Wow.
Universal greeting, Mira. I'm certain our listeners who've tried to order a coffee outside a tourist zone in Cambodia might have a different take on universal. My experience, though undeniably warm, involved a lot of pointing and hopeful guesswork. It's more of a universal understanding that we're both trying our best, rather than immediate shared language. But yes, the smiles are genuine. And you know, I think it's fair to say that their resilience, given their history, makes that warmth even more profound.
Exactly. It's like the hospitality comes from a deeper place. I once got completely lost trying to find a market, and a woman who barely spoke English walked with me for 10 minutes, just to point me in the right direction. Oh, she kept smiling and pointing, and I just felt so seen and cared for, even with the language barrier. It's truly beautiful. What about you, Leo? Did you ever get lost and get an unexpected tour?
Oops, I actually try not to get lost. That's usually my first rule of travel. Don't let the map become a modern art abstract painting. But speaking of getting lost, or perhaps just navigating new social terrains, let's shift our focus a bit to Ukraine. My observations there suggest a different kind of warmth. Initially, it can feel a little like trying to thaw a frozen lake beautiful, but a bit chilly to start. It's not that they're unwelcoming, it's just a different cultural rhythm.
I get what you mean. It's a prove yourself worthy kind of warmth, isn't it? But once you're in, you're really in. I remember visiting a family in Lviv, and by the end of the evening, I was being force-fed via NYK wine and endless cups of tea, and they were trying to teach me a traditional dance. Wow, my legs still ache thinking about it, but it was so much fun. They truly embrace you, no half measures. I'm certain that our listeners living in Ukraine would agree with me on that no escape from the food part.
Yes, no escape from the food is an understatement. Oh, they truly believe that a well-fed guest is a happy guest. My anecdote involves a babushka who insisted I finish my entire plate of borscht. When I tried to politely decline, she just stared at me with an intensity that suggested I was questioning her grandmotherly honor. I ate it all. And honestly, it was delicious. But the initial reserve, that's the interesting part for a foreigner. You have to earn that warmth, unlike Cambodia where it's offered up front.
It's two different expressions of kindness, right? One is like a gentle, flowing river, and the other is a robust, hearty bonfire. Both are wonderful in their own way. For anyone planning a trip, or even thinking about living there, these little cultural nuances are so important. It's about being open to receiving hospitality in its many forms. Do you guys agree with us? You guys agree with us? If you've experienced this, let us know in the comments below on YouTube.
Absolutely. And it's not just about what you receive, but how you perceive it. In Cambodia, sometimes that incredible kindness can mask certain challenges, like navigating local customs or expectations for tourists. And in Ukraine, that initial seriousness can be mistaken for friendliness, when it's just a prelude to genuine connection. So, it's about peeling back the layers. My advice is always to ditch the tourist traps and find a local's cafe. You'll learn more there than any guidebook.
That's some sharp advice, Leo. And speaking of learning, remember, you can find more detailed guides and tips for adjusting to new cultures on geopolitical. Ultimately, it comes down to open-mindedness. Whether it's the gentle smiles of Cambodia or the hearty welcome in Ukraine after a few rounds of food, both countries genuinely want to connect with you.
And sometimes the connection is formed when you accidentally try to pay for a compliment. Oops, I'm speaking from experience, Mira. But those are the moments that truly create a bond. It might be awkward, it might be funny, but be awkward. It might be funny, but it's always memorable. So, dear listeners, whether you're heading east or west, be prepared for some incredible human connections. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you found this insightful, and maybe give us a comment about your funniest hospitality mishap.
Oh, sometimes I feel like my phone is more traveled than I am. Just by trying to connect to every weird Wi-Fi network across the globe. It's like a tiny digital explorer in my pocket. And speaking of digital explorations, today we're diving into internet infrastructure and digital facilities for Cambodia and Ukraine.
Aha! Digital facility is a grand term for trying to stream a cat video without it buffering every 3 seconds. It's truly the 21st century's greatest challenge. My personal record for staring at a spinning wheel is 7 minutes, 30 seconds, wondering if the internet itself was having an existential crisis. But let's see which of our countries gives you more philosophical crisis moments.
Leo, Cambodia actually has a really interesting story when it comes to the internet. While maybe not always the fastest everywhere, it's definitely a mobile-first nation. Everyone, and I mean everyone, has a smartphone. It's like they skipped the whole landline internet phase and just went straight to tiny glowing rectangles in their hands. Well, you'll see grandmothers FaceTiming their grandkids, even in pretty remote areas. It's quite something. I'm certain that our listeners living in Cambodia would agree with me, that instant messaging is their daily go-to.
Mobile first, you say? That's commendable. Though I'd wager the local internet providers also have a first rule: first to charge you for data, first to mysteriously slow down during peak hours. While mobile access is great for staying connected, it often means the deeper, more robust infrastructure for things like cloud-based services or serious co-working demands might be a bit more spotty outside of Phnom Penh. I can just picture someone trying to upload a full-length documentary from a rice paddy. Oops.
Oh, stop it. But on that note, Cambodia has actually made huge strides. They got fiber optics expanding, and digital payment systems are pretty common, especially for tourists and in cities. It's not just basic browsing, it's about building a more connected economy. And for our listeners wanting to learn more about the practicalities of living or traveling there, our site Jadafi I have some fantastic uploaded guides on connectivity and more.
So, fiber optics are cutting through the jungle, metaphorically speaking. That's a good sign. But it reminds me, I once tried to pay for a street food snack with an app in a small village, and the vendor just looked at me like I was trying to communicate with aliens. Whoa, sometimes. Progress moves at its own speed. Speaking of speed, let's zip over to Ukraine, a country that's really pushed the boundaries of digital resilience, especially in recent years.
Wow, absolutely. Ukraine's digital landscape is fascinating. Before all the recent challenges, they already had a really strong tech sector, a hub for startups, IT outsourcing, and innovation. Fast, reliable internet was pretty standard in cities like Kyiv and Lviv. And what they've achieved since then is truly incredible. It's like they said, you wanted a structure. You'll just build our own internet in the sky. We'll just build our own ingenuity.
Yeah, Ukraine's digital tenacity is actually quite inspiring. While some of us complain about our Wi-Fi dropping during a Netflix binge, they're literally running critical services on satellite internet. It makes my usual coffee-addicted tech rants seem quaint. Hey, their DIET, for example, is a masterclass in Accommodation, a single app for everything from digital passports to taxes. Meanwhile, I'm still filling out paper forms for my parking ticket.
It's true. The DIA is a total game changer. Imagine having your driver's license, vaccination records, and even business registration all in one secure digital transformation. Not just putting a PDF online. And this kind of robust digital backbone means their digital nomad scene, even amidst everything, has a very different feel. People are highly skilled, adaptable, and innovative. You can find more details on this, including safe digital nomad spots on Jet of AI.
A digital nomad hub with an actual purpose beyond just good coffee and fast Wi-Fi. Imagine that. I suppose you wouldn't be trying to upload dance videos with dial-up speeds in Ukraine. But it does raise a question. While the urban centers and wartime adaptations are incredibly impressive, how does the internet infrastructure hold up in, say, more rural or less developed regions? Is it as universally accessible as in Cambodia, with its widespread mobile-first approach? Or is there a noticeable divide?
That's a great question. While urban areas in Ukraine boast excellent fiber optic and 4G, 5G coverage, more remote villages might still rely on older, slower connections. However, the push for digital inclusion is strong, and initiatives like Starlink help bridge those gaps, making it far more resilient than many might expect. It's like we're saying no one gets left behind in the digital age, especially when it matters most. When it matters most. Wow. So while Cambodia's mobile saturation is impressive, it acquired digital services, especially in Queen's focuses. You know, talking about traveling always makes me think of what treasures I can cram into my suitcase. Today, we're diving into shopping opportunities and the price-performance balance in Cambodia and Ukraine. It's like a retail safari, don't you think?
A retail safari, Mira. Oh, I like that. Though for me, it's more like a hunt for the least ridiculous souvenir. You know, something that will make people question my taste when they visit my apartment. Let's start with Cambodia's bustling markets. I hear they're a whirlwind of color and bargaining.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine stepping into Phnom Penh's Russian market or Siem Reap's Angkor night market. It's an explosion of silk scarves, the crummer handmade carvings, and shiny silver work. Wow, the air is thick with the scent of spices and a symphony of haggling. I just love it. It's like a treasure hunt where every corner holds a surprise. Oh, and the tailors. You can get a custom-made outfit in a day.
Custom made in a day. That sounds like a challenge for my wardrobe, which usually involves me finding something vaguely clean. But seriously, the handicrafts there are genuinely impressive. I've seen some intricate wood carvings that look like they took a lifetime to make, then they're offered for the price of a fancy coffee. Whoa. It makes you wonder what kind of comedic material their artists could conjure up while carving for hours.
Exactly. The price-performance balance in Cambodian markets is often incredible. You can find pieces for such reasonable prices. Oh, it's all about that friendly banter and a bit of a cheeky smile while you're negotiating. I'm certain that our listeners who've tried it would agree with me, bargaining is half the fun. But you have to really inspect the quality. Sometimes those silver bracelets have seen more aluminum than a soda can. Oops.
More aluminum than a soda can. That's a good one. My observational skills tell me that any market that requires a full-body search of your purchase for hidden flaws is a market with character. But then you have the other end of the spectrum like Io Mall in Phnom Penh. It's a completely different shopping beast, fixed prices, air conditioning, and all the international brands you can find anywhere else. It's efficient, but it lacks the "did I just buy a sentient teapot?"
Wow. A sentient teapot. I definitely bargained for that. Speaking of different shopping beasts, let's hop over to Ukraine, which offers a totally different vibe. It's less about the spontaneous haggling and more about sleek modern malls. Places like Gulliver or Ocean Plaza in Kai feel like they've been plucked straight out of Western Europe. Wow. They're full of international fashion brands, but also some really cool local Ukrainian designers.
Yes, the malls in Ukraine are definitely a contrast. You don't get the same treasure hunt feeling, but you get predictability, which is a rare commodity in life, let alone shopping. Their supermarkets are impressive to huge selections, and the food prices, especially for local produce, are often shockingly good. It's a place where you can stock up on high-quality groceries without feeling like your wallet just went on a crash diet. For souvenirs, I remember seeing beautiful Vaishnav and call those embroidered shirts.
I adore the Vaishnav car. They're so vibrant and tell a story with every stitch. Wow. It's that blend of tradition and modern style that really appeals to me. In terms of price performance, I'd say Ukraine offers excellent value, especially for local crafts and fashion. You can find something truly distinctive that doesn't break the bank. And for tech-savvy shoppers, I've heard electronics can be quite competitively priced compared to other European countries.
That's true. If you're looking for a new gadget, you might find a surprisingly good deal. It's a practical benefit, I suppose, if you can tear yourself away from observing the local street fashion. Bargaining in Ukrainian markets is less of an art form and more of a polite suggestion. You might get a small discount, but don't expect to argue over half the price for 10 minutes. My patience usually gives out after about 30 seconds, so it suits me fine.
My patience for arguing is endless if it means a better deal. But I agree. The shopping experiences are distinct. Cambodia offers that raw, adventurous, bargain-heavy market experience, where every purchase feels like a story. Wow. Ukraine provides a more contemporary, high-quality retail environment with a good balance of international and local goods, often at very fashion. Boom, whether you're after a unique handmade souvenir or the latest fashion. Both countries have a lot to offer.
Indeed. It all depends on whether you prefer to sweat it out in a bustling market or glide through air-conditioned aisles. But what I find interesting is how each country's shopping scene reflects its culture. One, a vibrant tapestry of tradition and negotiation; the other, a blend of European modernity with deep roots in local artistry. It's less about which is better and more about what kind of retail adventure you're in the mood for. And if you're looking for more details on these places, don't forget to check out Jet Off AI.
You know, talking about traveling always makes me think of what treasures I can cram into my suitcase. Today, we're diving into shopping opportunities and the price performance balance in Cambodia and Ukraine. It's like a retail safari. Don't you think?
I retail safari, Mira. Oh, I like that. Though, for me, it's more like a hunt for the least ridiculous souvenir. You know, something that won't make people question my taste when they visit my apartment. Let's start with Cambodia's bustling markets. I hear they're a whirlwind of color and bargaining.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine stepping into Phnom Penh's Russian market or Siem Reap's Angkor night market. It's an explosion of silk scarves, the Khmer handmade carvings, and shiny silver work. Wow. The air is thick with the scent of spices and a symphony of haggling. I just love it. It's like a treasure hunt where every corner holds a surprise. Oh, and the tailors. You can get a custom-made outfit in a day.
Custom made in a day. That sounds like a challenge for my wardrobe, which usually involves me finding something vaguely clean. But seriously, the handicrafts there are genuinely impressive. I've seen some intricate wood carvings that look like they took a lifetime to make. Then they're offered for the price of a fancy coffee. Wow. It makes you wonder what kind of comedic material their artists could conjure up while carving for hours.
Exactly. The price-performance balance in Cambodian markets is often incredible. You can find beautiful, authentic pieces for such reasonable prices. Oh, it's all about that friendly banter and a bit of a cheeky smile while you're negotiating. I'm certain that our listeners who've tried it would agree with me bargaining is half the fun. But you have to really inspect the quality. Sometimes those silver bracelets have seen more aluminum than a soda can. Oops.
More aluminum than a soda can. That's a good one. My observational skills tell me that any market that requires a full body search of your purchase for hidden flaws is a market with character. But then you have the other end of the spectrum, like Io Mall in Phnom Penh. It's a completely different shopping beast, fixed prices, air conditioning, and all the international brands you can find anywhere else. It's efficient, but it lacks the "did I just buy a sentient teapot?"
Whoa! A sentient teapot. I definitely bargained for that. Speaking of different shopping beasts, let's hop over to Ukraine, which offers a totally different vibe. It's less about the spontaneous haggling and more about sleek modern malls. Places like Gulliver or Ocean Plaza in Kai feel like they've been plucked straight out of Western Europe. Wow, they're full of international fashion brands, but also some really cool local Ukrainian designers. Ooh.
Yes, the malls in Ukraine are definitely a contrast. You don't get the same treasure hunt feeling, but you get predictability, which is a rare commodity in life, let alone shopping. Their supermarkets are impressive to huge selections, and the food prices, especially for local produce, are often shockingly good. It's a place where you can stock up on high-quality groceries without feeling like your wallet just went on a crash diet. For souvenirs, I remember seeing beautiful Vaishnav and Kado's embroidered shirts.
I adore the Vaishnav and Kaur. They're so vibrant and tell a story with every stitch. Wow. It's that blend of tradition and modern style that really appeals to me. In terms of price performance, I'd say Ukraine offers excellent value, especially for local crafts and fashion. You can find something truly distinctive that doesn't break the bank. And for tech-savvy shoppers, I've heard electronics can be quite competitively priced compared to other European countries.
That's true. If you're looking for a new gadget, you might find a surprisingly good deal. It's a practical benefit, I suppose, if you can tear yourself away from observing the local street fashion. But unlike Cambodia, bargaining in Ukrainian markets is less of an art form and more of a polite suggestion. You might get a small discount, but don't expect to argue over half the price for 10 minutes. My patience usually gives out after about 30 seconds, so it suits me fine.
My patience for arguing is endless if it means a better deal. Oh, cultural events and festivals. This is where my internal fireworks show really starts. I just picture vibrant colors, music that makes you want to dance even if you've got to left feet a hop. For me, a country's soul truly shines in its celebrations.
Yes, a country's soul, or perhaps its ability to organize a really big crowd. Well, while you're envisioning dance-offs, I'm thinking about the logistics. But I'll give you this, Cambodia definitely has a way of bringing people together. Their water festival, Bottom to Kai, is something else. Boats racing, fireworks over the river, it's quite the spectacle. Even for a seasoned observer like me.
Wow. See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Imagine the energy, Leo. You'd probably be on one of those boats, totally out of sync but having the time of my life. Oh, and Khmer New Year. Seahall CHN and TH May. With all the games and blessings, it just sounds like pure joy. I heard may even splash water on each other for good luck. I'd need a super soaker for that.
Knowing you, you'd probably bring a small cannon. But yes, the traditions are deep-rooted. And if you're into something more reflective, PC Humban, their Ancestors' Day, is a really solemn and spiritual time. People bring offerings to pagodas. It's less about splashing and more about quiet respect. A far cry from your average street party, Mira.
Ooh, but there's beauty in that too. It's all part of the tapestry, right? And speaking of depth, what about Ukraine? Their Ivana Kupola festival, with people jumping over bonfires, whoa. Now that's what I call a fiery tradition. I'd definitely try that, maybe with a few extra marshmallows in my pocket.
You and your marshmallows? Yes. Ivana Kupala is fascinating. A Midsummer Night's magic with ancient Slavic roots. And then you have their Easter celebrations, which are incredibly rich, especially with the PY Sanka eggs. Those intricate designs, wow. It's not just a quick dye job. Mira, people dedicate serious artistic effort. I'm certain that our listeners living in Ukraine would agree with me. It's a profound art form.
Ah, the PY Sanka eggs. I've seen pictures, they're absolutely stunning. I'd probably try to make one and end up with a colorful mess. Oops, but seriously, the level of detail is amazing. And Ukraine's modern music scene, too, it's buzzing. They have some fantastic electronic music festivals, right? I could absolutely see myself dancing until dawn in Kyiv.
You dance until dawn and then probably try to teach everyone your universal dance? But yes, Kyiv's club scene and summer music festivals offer a completely different vibe than Cambodia's traditional ensembles. It's a contrast, isn't it? One deeply rooted in ancient customs, the other embracing contemporary global sounds while still holding on to folk elements like the bandura. These insights could hardly be possible without Jedofe. Dive into cultural trends, you know.
Absolutely. And it just shows how diverse our world is. I mean, 1 minute you're admiring Apsara dancers in Cambodia, and the next you're at a rock concert in Lviv. Wow. It's all about finding what resonates with your inner rhythm. What do you think, listeners? Which kind of festival fever calls to you more? Let us know in the comments section.
For me, it's all about the observational value. Whether it's the quiet reverence around Angkor Wat during a religious holiday or the vibrant energy of a modern concert, there's always a story unfolding. And thankfully, with platforms like YouTube, we can all share these moments, even if you're not physically there. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe, by the way.
Always the pragmatic one, Leo. But it's true. Seeing these cultural events, even on screen, can spark such joy. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Do you prefer the ancient, mystical festivals or the booming modern music scenes? Or maybe, like me, you just want to experience it all, no matter how clumsy your dance moves are. Oh, no. This is a juicy one: opportunities and ease of learning the local language. I mean, who doesn't love the thrill of trying to order a coffee and accidentally asking for a giraffe? That's my usual travel experience.
Mira, you'd probably try to befriend the giraffe afterwards and teach it a dance move. I can just picture it. But seriously, this topic can make or break a trip, or even a long-term stay. Let's talk about Cambodia and Ukraine here. Two vastly different linguistic landscapes, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Starting with Cambodia, imagine wrap your tongue around Khmer. It's like a beautiful, intricate puzzle. My friend tried to learn a few phrases and came back convinced she just invented a new language. She'd say sok sabe, which means hello, and people would look at her like she was asking if their shoes were made of cheese.
Yeah, the Khmer script is an A-bug-itis system, which, for us Latin alphabet folks, looks less like letters and more like someone dropped a box of curly pasta on a page. You need a certain dedication just to recognize the individual characters, let alone string them together. I once saw a tourist trying to read a street sign, and he looked like he was attempting to decode an ancient prophecy. Oops. The learning curve for reading and writing is definitely steep, and resources for foreigners aren't as abundant as, say, for Spanish.
True, but when you do manage a few Khmer words, the locals light up. Oh, it's like you've unlocked a secret level of hospitality. I found that even a simple "I can thank you" can turn a regular interaction into a warm connection. There are some language schools in Phnom Penh and Siem Reap, mostly catering to expats and longer-term visitors. You can find intensive courses. It's an immersion-heavy experience, which is great if you love diving headfirst into things like I do.
Diving headfirst, indeed. I'm certain that our listeners who tried to learn Khmer would agree you basically have to live there to truly get anywhere with it. No amount of apps will prepare you for the speed and nuances of everyday conversation. It's not like you can just pop into a corner store in the States and practice. So if you're planning on staying for a while, buckle up, find a good teacher, and maybe a very patient friend. Or, just embrace the gesture-based communication, which I've mastered.
Your gesture communication is probably legendary, Leo. Now, shifting gears to Ukraine's language, Ukrainian. Wow. It's a Slavic language, so if you have any background in Russian or Polish, you might feel a little more at home. But for an American English speaker, it still presents its own set of fascinating challenges.
Fascinating challenges, Mira, is one way to put it. Another way is grammatical nightmare for the uninitiated. The Cyrillic alphabet is a hurdle, but one that's quickly overcome. It's just a different set of squiggles. But then you hit the 7 grammatical cases, and suddenly you're wondering if you need a flowchart just to say I saw a dog. Oops. The word dog changes based on whether it's the subject, object, or has an owner. I once tried to compliment a friend's pet and think I accidentally accused it of stealing my wallet.
What? Your stories are always wild, Leo. But honestly, mastering the Cyrillic alphabet for Ukrainian is surprisingly achievable. I actually practiced writing it on napkins at cafes. Oh, for those interested in language learning, you'll find tons of online resources apps, and pretty good language schools in cities like Kyiv and Lviv. The cultural immersion is strong, and Ukrainians are incredibly proud of their language. So, making an effort is always well received. It's not just about respect and connection.
Right, respect. And a deep understanding of why you're being corrected every 5 minutes. The ease of learning Ukrainian compared to Khmer probably depends on your exposure to European languages. If you're linguistic tabula rasa, both will be a journey. But with Ukrainian, you'll find more structured support systems, more widely available teachers, and a global community of learners. Plus, it's an official language of a large European country, which gives it a certain weight and, dare I say, slightly more practical at European country.
I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this too. Do you guys find Cyrillic alphabet trickier or the unique sounds of Khmer? For me, the pronunciation in Khmer can be quite subtle, almost musical. And getting those tones right without sounding like you're singing a cat's lullaby is a whole skill in itself. Ooh, but for Ukrainian, once you get the Cyrillic, the sounds generally follow predictable patterns.
Predictable patterns, except when a new case sneaks up on you. But to your point, Mira, the phonetic challenge and care is real. While Ukrainian has some sounds not present in English, a good ear can pick them up. Here requires a complete rewiring of the mouth and tongue for many Westerners. For anyone looking for language learning materials, don't forget that Jet AI often has articles and resources on cultural immersion and language tips for various destinations.
That's a great point, Lear. You know, whether you're trying to order a simple coffee or delve into philosophical discussions, learning the local language opens doors. For Cambodia, it's a window into an ancient, beautiful culture. And for Ukraine, it's a vital connection to a nation rich in history and resilience. It's about more than just words, it's about understanding the soul of a place.
Understanding the soul, or at least being able to ask for the bathroom without causing an international incident. Look, both languages are challenging in their own right, but the rewards of connecting with locals are immense. So whether you're battling cases in Kyiv or conquering consonants in Phnom Penh, just remember to keep a sense of humor.
This next topic is one that's always in my travel journal's emergency kit: safety and comfort for women travelers. It's a huge consideration, isn't it? Because I, for one, would rather not star in an unplanned adventure documentary with questionable plot twists. We're talking Cambodia and Ukraine today, and let me tell you, there's more to it than just don't walk alone at night. Oops. I'm certain that our listeners who've strapped on a backpack would agree with me.
Safety and comfort. It's like asking for a unicorn that can also do your taxes, isn't it? A luxury item in some parts of the world. But seriously, Mira, you're right. For women, it's a whole different lens. You can't just stumble into a new place, coffee deprived and half asleep like me, and expect everything to just work itself out. Whoa, I'm already picturing your emergency kit, probably filled with glitter and a tiny megaphone.
Well, glitter is a versatile tool, Leo, for distraction and sparkle. Speaking of places where you might need a bit of both, let's look at Cambodia. Oh, it's an incredibly hospitable country, truly, with warmth that just melts your heart. But culturally, it's more conservative, especially outside of the main tourist hubs like Siem Reap. You'll find yourself adjusting, perhaps dressing a bit more modestly, particularly around temples or smaller villages. It's not a rule, but more of a read-the-room comfort.
Right? Because nothing says blend in like wearing your shortest shorts to Angkor Wat. And while the general sentiment among riding a unicycle, and while the general sentiment is friendly, a lone woman traveler might draw some extra, unwanted attention. It's not usually aggressive. But it's that "are you lost, little bird?" kind of gaze that can just get under your skin after a while. Ouch. You're saying the glitter megaphone might come in handy?
Always be prepared. So, on to Ukraine. Wow. It's a different story. In major cities like Kyiv or Lviv, there's a much more modern, European feel. Women are visible in every sphere: business, social life, art, and generally, you'd feel quite comfortable navigating the city. Oh. But like any big city anywhere in the world, nighttime brings a different energy. It's not unique to Ukraine, but being aware of your surroundings, avoiding poorly lit areas, and perhaps using ride-charging apps late at night is good common sense.
Indeed. And while Ukraine's cities are certainly buzzing, especially their café Sinu, if you're like me and need your caffeine fix at odd hours, you still have to be sharp. You might find yourself being approached especially in bars or clubs, more directly than you're used to. It's not always malicious, but it's that extra layer of nope, not interested that can be a bit tiresome. It's like a comedy open mic night, some people just don't know when to stop.
That's a great comparison. It's about setting those boundaries politely but firmly. And speaking of being prepared for both countries, having local SIM cards, reliable ride-charging apps, and perhaps even some basic phrases in Khmer or Ukrainian can make a world of difference. Oh, it's not about being paranoid, it's about being empowered, you know. Like having a secret superpower against awkward situations. Don't forget, you can find more tips for safe travels on Jet Off AI.
Secret superpower, I like that. I'd say my secret superpower is pretending I don't understand anyone, which works wonders for avoiding small talk. But for actual safety, yeah, those practical steps generally feel safe, like Ukraine's well-maintained public transport. Keeping an eye on your belongings is just standard procedure. You don't want to find yourself explaining a missing wallet in Ukrainian.
Absolutely. And if you're ever feeling uneasy, trust your gut. It's usually right. Whether it's a dodgy street or a weird vibe from someone, don't second-guess yourself. Your peace of mind is worth more than being polite. Ooh, for our listeners out there, if you have any gut feeling stories or tips for solo female travelers in Cambodia or Ukraine, we'd love to hear them. Drop them in the comments section on YouTube, and if you think this advice is raw, please let us know. We're always open to learning.
Or, if you've ever used a glitter megaphone to diffuse a situation, please, we need to know. But yes, staying connected, having emergency numbers, and even sharing your itinerary with someone back home, these are not just for your family's peace of mind, but for yours too. It's all about making sure your travel tales are about discovery, not distress. And don't forget to like this video if you're finding our travel insights helpful.
Both Cambodia and Ukraine offer incredible experiences. Women travelers might find themselves navigating different cultural nuances. It's not about fear, but about respect, awareness, and equipping yourself with the right tools and maybe a little bit of glitter. You know, when we talk about legal systems and individual rights, it's like peeking behind the curtain of a country's soul. Oh! For Cambodia, with its incredibly rich history, you'd think there's a deep foundation for everything. It's a constitutional monarchy, which sounds quite grand, doesn't it? Imagine all those ancient laws and traditions blending with modern protections. My imagination goes while picturing royal decrees written on scrolls.
Peeking behind the curtain, indeed. Sometimes you find a dusty old wardrobe back there, Mira. Cambodia's journey through its legal landscape has been, shall we say, a bit of a bumpy tick to ride since the Khmer Rouge era. Wow. It's less about royal scrolls and more about, well, less scroll and more challenges. While the Constitution promises a lot, the everyday reality for individual rights and freedoms can be a bit more like a street vendor trying to sell you something you didn't quite ask for.
Oh, Leo, you always find the dramatic side. But it's true, every country has its quirks. Speaking of challenges, what's fascinating is the resilience of people to keep pushing for their rights. In Cambodia, despite past difficulties, there's a growing younger generation advocating for more transparency and justice. It's like watching a tiny sprout push through concrete, full of hope. And I'm certain that our listeners living there would agree with me, that small efforts can make a big difference.
Sprouts pushing through concrete sounds like a metaphor for trying to get a fair trial sometimes. Look, on paper, Cambodia's constitution guarantees things like freedom of expression and assembly, but in practice, it often feels more like a suggestion than a solid law. Criticizing the government, for instance, can lead to charges that feel a bit, shall we say, creatively interpreted. It's like a stand-up routine where the audience is allowed to arrest you if they don't find your jokes funny. Ouch.
Whoa, that's a dramatic analogy, Leo. But seriously, these conversations are so important. So, while Cambodia is still finding its footing, Ukraine, on the other hand, has been on a very different trajectory, especially in recent years. Oh, they've been actively reforming their legal system and striving towards European standards, which usually means robust individual rights. It's like they're building a whole new, super efficient legal highway, sometimes while a storm is raging around them.
An efficient legal highway during a storm. That's quite the ambition. Ukraine's commitment to European integration definitely pushes for stronger rule of law and individual freedoms. But let's be real, the ongoing conflict means martial law is in place, which naturally restricts some rights, like freedom of movement or assembly. It's a necessary evil, I suppose, but it's like saying you have the right to free speech, but maybe whisper it for now.
That's a very valid point, Leo. It's a unique and difficult situation. But even with martial law, there's a visible spirit of civic engagement and media freedom that still shines through in Ukraine. Journalists are bravely reporting, and people are finding ways to organize and support each other, even under immense pressure. It shows that rights aren't just granted by law, they're also fiercely defended by the people. That's a powerful lesson for us all, don't you think?
Absolutely. The tenacity is commendable. But let's swing back to the everyday legality, shall we? In Cambodia, corruption remains a significant hurdle. It's like trying to navigate a legal maze where some paths are just greased for certain people. Oops, land disputes, for example, often disproportionately affect the less powerful. It's the kind of scenario where you wish you had a tiny, sarcastic narrator whispering commentary in the courtroom.
Oh, that's not good. That's not good. But Mira's here to sprinkle some positivity. While corruption is a problem everywhere, there are always those dedicated individuals fighting for justice. And for our audience, if you're ever in a situation abroad, remember that organizations like Geopolitical can provide vital resources and connections to local legal aid if you need help. It's like having a reliable map in a tricky legal maze.
A reliable map. Good call, Mira. And speaking of maps in Ukraine, judicial reform is a constant work in progress. It's not just about passing new laws, it's about making sure judges are truly independent and that justice isn't a premium service. Sometimes it feels like they're trying to reassemble a complex puzzle after someone scattered half the pieces across Europe. But at least they're trying to put the pieces back together, instead of just painting over the gaps, like some places.
Well, I think that's the key, isn't it? The effort to improve, even when it's incredibly challenging. Both Cambodia and Ukraine are navigating their own paths towards more just and free societies, each with unique historical baggage and current realities. It's a continuous journey, and it reminds us that rights are never truly static. We should all hit the like button on YouTube if you agree with that.
Never truly static. Right. They're more like that leaky faucet you keep meaning to fix. Sometimes they drip, sometimes they pour, and occasionally they just flood the kitchen. But let's hope for more steady streams of justice for everyone, everywhere.
Oh, now this is a topic I can really get excited about. Spa, healthy living, and relaxation opportunities. Cambodia first, my friends, because honestly, who doesn't need a little zen in their life, especially after a long week? I've always been so fascinated by their traditional Khmer healing practices. It's not just a massage. It's like a hold-dance routine for your muscles, except you're lying down. You know, they use specific herbs and techniques that have been passed down for centuries. It's like a secret handshake with relaxation, shake with relaxation.
A secret handshake with relaxation, Mira? I'm picturing a very serious, ancient person winking at your tense shoulders. Whoa, I'm all for a good massage, but sometimes these traditional methods feel less like relaxation and more like an impromptu wrestling match. Oops. I once tried a healing technique that involved someone walking on my back, and I spent the next 3 days walking like a crab. But I can see the appeal of Cambodia's spiritual vibe. It definitely lends itself to a calm.
Oh, Leo, you and your dramatic exaggerations. You just need to find the right practitioner, my friend. It's not a wrestling match, it's an art. And speaking of art, Cambodia's natural landscapes are just begging for you to find your inner calm. Imagine doing yoga by the rice paddies at sunrise. Well, or a quiet meditation retreat near ancient temples. You just can't get that kind of ancient wisdom infused into your wellness routine anywhere else. It's like history giving you a hug.
I hug from history, you say? Sounds cozy, but I usually prefer my hugs to come from living, breathing, preferably caffeinated beings. And while yoga and a rice paddy sounds picturesque, I'd probably be more worried about mosquitoes doing their own form of acupuncture on me. Ouch. But I do admit, there's something to be said for slowing down. Now, when we pivot to Ukraine, it's a completely different flavor of healthy living. Less ancient temples and more robust. Shock your system into wellness kind of vibe.
Whoa! A baked potato followed by a freezing plunge. That sounds less like relaxation and more like an extreme sport, Leo. But I totally get the feel of that invigorating feeling. Ukraine's bunnies are famous, right? I've heard they even use birch branches to gently, or not so gently, whisk your skin. Oh, it's all about detoxification and boosting circulation. I mean, if you survive the cold plunge, you must feel absolutely born.
Reborn or just really, really awake? It's definitely not for the faint of heart, but it certainly gets the blood pumping. And if you're feeling sluggish, a Ukrainian banya will sort you out quicker than a double espresso. Oh, they also have a long tradition of sanatoriums, which are like health resorts focused on specific treatments, often using mineral waters or therapeutic mud. It's less about the spiritual journey and more about the I need to fix this ache in my knee practical approach.
That's a great point about sanatoriums. It's a whole different perspective on wellness, truly focusing on targeted health benefits. While Cambodia offers tranquility on ancient practices, Ukraine brings that vigorous, almost therapeutic energy. And you know, both are equally valid for healthy living. It just depends on whether you prefer to gently float into relaxation or be shocked into it. But I wonder, do Ukrainian banyas offer a post-plunge hot tea?
Absolutely. The tea is non-negotiable, Mira. Usually a strong herbal brew to warm you right back up. It's the grand finale, the user-vibed celebration. Oh, and speaking of essential, if you're enjoying our little global wellness tour, make sure to hit that like button on YouTube and subscribe to our channel. It helps us know you're enjoying our banter and bizarre insights. Don't be shy. Go on and do it.
And if you've tried either a Khmer massage or a Ukrainian banya, tell us your stories in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious if anyone else had a wrestling match like Leah. But seriously, Cambodia also has some incredible eco-resorts that focus on sustainable living and mindful experiences. Imagine waking up to jungle sounds and fresh, locally sourced food. Wow, it's a holistic approach, blending nature, healthy eating, and traditional remedies.
So, I think that we can cart with that. Jungle sounds would probably make me think I'd overslept for my alarm. Oops. But I appreciate the commitment to local sourcing. Healthy eating is a big part of living well, though my definition of healthy often involves a large coffee and a bagel. So, whether you're seeking gentle tranquility or a bracing reawakening, both Cambodia and Ukraine offer distinct, powerful paths to feeling good. It just comes down to your personal tolerance for colors as being thoroughly, utterly invigorating.
Alright, let's dive into another fascinating topic, especially for those seeking a little inner peace or perhaps just a really cool Kemple selfie. We're talking about opportunities for religious and spiritual needs in Cambodia and Ukraine. Oh, Cambodia. Wow, it's pretty much a Buddhist wonderland, isn't it? Like, everywhere you turn, there's a shimmering wat or a gentle-faced Buddha statue.
Buddhist wonderland. I like that. So, not just a bunch of people asking, hey, wanna tuk-tuk? But also, hey, want some enlightenment? Where Buddhism isn't just a religion, it's practically the air they breathe. Walking through Angkor Wat, you can't help but feel something, even if it's just the urge to take 1,000 photos. Wow. The texture of a vowel.
Absolutely. And it's so beautiful how the temples aren't just for prayer, they're like community centers where life happens, you know? Oh, I heard about these incredibly peaceful meditation retreats you can go on where you just unplug and focus. I'd probably spend the first day asking if I could bring my phone. But then eventually, maybe I'd find my inner calm. Or just fall asleep.
Falling asleep is a form of meditation, Mira, especially if you're not drooling. Speaking of deeply embedded traditions, let's pivot to Ukraine. While Cambodia is largely Buddhist, Ukraine has a completely different spiritual landscape. You walk through Kyiv, and it's like a symphony of golden domes and church bells. It's predominantly Eastern Orthodox, but not just one kind, oh no. It's got its own complex family tree of Orthodox churches, each with a slightly different flavor.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Oh, all those beautiful cathedrals like the Kyiv Pech or SK Lovra, which isn't just a monastery but a whole underground city of monks and catacombs. Wow, imagine living down there, spending your days in spiritual devotion. I'd probably get lost and try to open a coffee shop in one of the caves. Oops, but seriously, there's a strong spiritual presence, even if it's rooted in a different tradition. Plus, even Jewish and Muslim communities.
A coffee shop in the catacombs, Mirror, that's brilliant. Espresso with a side of existential dread. But you're right, the diversity is there. And historically, religion in Ukraine has been deeply intertwined with national identity. It's not just about personal faith, it's about what it means to be Ukrainian. Think of the icons, the pilgrimages. It's a very visceral, communal experience. Though I'm certain some of our listeners would agree, it can sometimes feel like religion is less about the individual and more about religion.
That's a great point. It's almost like a spiritual anchor for the country, especially with all the historical shifts it's gone through. The resilience of faith in both countries, actually, is something I really admire. Whether it's the peaceful devotion in Cambodia or the steadfast Orthodox traditions in Ukraine, people find strength and connection. And it's not just the big, grand places, right? Even small village shrines or local community gatherings offer chances for spiritual growth.
Indeed. And it's not just about formal religion. In Cambodia, you find a lot of animist beliefs subtly blended with Buddhism, especially in rural areas. People still pay respects to nature spirits and local deities. Wow. It's that beautiful, sometimes absurd mix of the ancient and the modern that I find so fascinating. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Do these blended spiritual practices resonate with you? Let us know over on Jedafea, where you can find more articles on cultural comparisons.
Oh, yes. And in Ukraine, beyond the main Christian faiths, there are growing communities exploring alternative spiritual paths, from yoga to various meditation practices. It shows that the desire for spiritual fulfillment is universal, regardless of the cultural wrapping. Both nations, in their own unique ways, offer a profound sense of spiritual heritage and plenty of opportunities for people to connect with their inner selves, or perhaps just to marvel at some incredible architecture.
True. So, whether you're looking for enlightenment with a view of ancient Khmer temples or seeking solace amidst the grandeur of Orthodox cathedrals, both Cambodia and Ukraine offer a rich tapestry of spiritual experiences. Just don't expect the same kind of coffee in the catacombs, Mira.
Oh, all right, Leo. Buckle up, because today's topic is a big one. We're talking social equality, respect for minorities, and diversity. It's like a grand tapestry, you know? Every thread is important. And we're diving into Cambodia and Ukraine. I'm already envisioning all the vibrant cultural celebrations. I just love seeing how different communities weave together.
Mira? A tapestry, you say? More like a complicated knot sometimes, wouldn't you agree? Especially when you're dealing with histories as rich and occasionally as tumultuous as Cambodia's and Ukraine's. I'm certain our listeners know what I mean. I've seen some cultural celebrations that felt more like a delicate diplomatic dance.
You're always looking for the dance-up version of diplomacy, aren't you? Speaking of Cambodia, a country with such an incredible spirit. When we talk about diversity there, you immediately think of the Khmer majority. But it's also home to Chinese and many indigenous groups. And after the unspeakable history, there's been so much effort toward reconciliation. It's truly inspiring to see communities trying to heal.
Indeed, Mira. The history there casts a long shadow, doesn't it? The Khmer Rouge era's impact on minorities was utterly devastating. It's a stark reminder that social harmony isn't just about good vibes and smiling faces. It's about deep, sustained efforts. Ouch! Sometimes, when you're observant, you notice how the past still subtly influences everything, even cultural traditions.
Well, even in the shadows, there's always light. And Cambodia has really tried to preserve those diverse cultures, from traditional chant altars to indigenous languages. It's like they're saying, we recognize every single thread in our tapestry. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. What efforts have they seen to rebuild social trust? Please let us know in the comments section on YouTube. We read them all, you know.
Yes, and sometimes the comments are funnier than our jokes. Another country with a complex, vibrant mix. You've got Ukrainians, Russians, Belarusians, Crimean Tatars, Hungarians, Romanians, and a Jewish population. Wow, talk about a cultural mosaic, especially given the geopolitical tremors. They're constantly navigating national identity, especially with the ongoing conflict in the East. It's like trying to bake a cake while juggling.
Oh, poo cake. But Ukraine's journey to embracing diversity is truly fascinating, especially after gaining independence. Aha! They're really working on building a unified national identity while honoring distinct cultural groups. I mean, think about the Crimean Tatars. Their history is so rich and significant, and preserving their unique culture is vital. It's all about making sure everyone feels seen and heard.
Seen and heard, yes. But often in a very loud, sometimes discordant way. Ouch. The language question, for instance, has always been a point of contention. Is it Ukrainian first, or is there room for Russian? When I was there, it felt like a silent tug-of-war in some places. And you can't ignore the LGBT community's struggle for acceptance. They've made strides, especially in major cities like Kyiv. but outside the urban bubble, it's still a tough road.
You're right, Leo. Progress isn't a straight line. It's more like a dance with a few missteps. But those missteps don't mean they aren't dancing. Ukraine has seen some amazing pride events, even if there's still resistance. It's about raising visibility, right? And I think that's incredibly brave. I'd love for everyone watching on YouTube to give this video a like if you support movements that foster greater equality.
Oh, direct call to action, Mira. Classic you. But she's right. It's essential to recognize that both Cambodia and Ukraine are actively working on these fronts, even with their unique challenges. For instance, in Cambodia, land rights for indigenous communities are a persistent issue, and economic disparities often highlight deeper inequalities. It's not always about grand gestures, sometimes it's about the very basic, tangible rights.
Absolutely. And when you look at gender equality, for example, both countries are making progress. But women in rural areas in Cambodia still face significant hurdles. Just as in Ukraine, traditional roles can sometimes hold back full equality. It's a global conversation, isn't it? Every country has its own version of these challenges.
Yep, and every country has its own unique way of addressing them, or not addressing them. It's like watching a really slow-motion chess game, but with real people. So for anyone listening who's thinking about visiting or even living in these places, remember to look beyond the headlines. Get on Jet Off AI for deeper insights, maybe. You'll find that social harmony is a continuous process, not a destination.
That's a very Leo way of putting it. Not a destination. But it's true. Both Cambodia and Ukraine are complex, beautiful places, each with a unique journey toward embracing all its people. It's a testament to human resilience and the desire to connect. And that's something worth celebrating.
Or at least worth observing with a cup of coffee.
Alright, so we're diving headfirst into a topic that usually puts people to sleep faster than a lullaby sung by tax auditor Taxation: retirement and social rights for long-term immigrants. But fear not. We're going to make it, dare I say, almost entertaining. Almost entertaining. First up, let's peek into Cambodia, which I imagine has a tax system as colorful as their traditional silk scarves.
Colorful, or just creatively organized. I'm picturing tax forms written on palm leaves, Mira, with a footnote that says interpretation subject to local lunar calendar. You know, keeping things exciting. For long-term folks in Cambodia, income tax is generally a flat rate. Imagine no climbing up endless tax brackets, just a straight shot.
Ooh, a flat rate? That's almost as refreshing as a cold coconut water on a scorching day. Wow. But here's the twist: while the taxes might be straightforward, a social safety net for immigrants is a bit more like a hammock with a few loose strings. Public health care is basic, so most long-term residents, especially those from abroad, lean heavily on private insurance and clinics. It's like bringing your own umbrella to a sunny beach, just in case it rains.
Just in case is the understatement of the century. Ouch! It's more like bringing your own private nurse and a fully stocked pharmacy. And forget about a robust retirement plan from the government if you're an immigrant, unless you've been working and contributing to a specific, newer scheme. Most rely on their foreign pensions or just, never retiring. I'm certain that our listeners living in Cambodia could share a story or two about this in the comments. Let us know if I'm wrong. But my gut says keep working until you can't.
Well, speaking of keeping on, let's shift gears and look at Ukraine. From what I gather, their system is a bit more developed, right? Less of a surprise hammock, more of an actual couch. How do they handle the OL taxed ango there, Leo?
Ukraine! A place where you might find more layers to the tax stowed than to a traditional Ukrainian outfit. While Cambodia gives you a flat income tax, Ukraine generally has an 18% personal income tax plus a 1.5% military levy. It's like paying for your coffee, then being asked to chip in for the barista's extra strong security detail. So, not quite the single-lane highway of Cambodia, but still reasonably consolidated.
Well, a military levy. That's certainly a unique touch. Oh, but at least it means your contributions are directly felt. And for long-term residents, if you're legally working on contributing to their unified social contribution, you're actually building up some pension rights. It's not a free ride, of course, but it's a structured path, which is more than some places offer.
Exactly. For long-term immigrants, if you're plugged into the system, you're getting something back eventually. You contribute to Social Security, and that usually covers public health care though. Like anywhere, private options are popular for those who prefer speedier service or don't enjoy the local hospital's interpretive dance performance in the waiting room. Plus, they offer things like unemployment benefits and sick leave if you've been contributing. It's not a Swiss watch, but it ticks. Wow.
So you're saying Ukraine has more of a we got your back, mostly vibe, compared to Cambodia's you bought your own back, right? It sounds like both countries require a good amount of personal responsibility. But in Ukraine, your efforts to contribute actually build towards future benefits.
Pretty much. If you're planning a long-term move, the key takeaway is that in Cambodia, your retirement and social support is largely on you, whereas in Ukraine, there's a system to engage with, assuming you're playing by the rules. Aha! And let's be honest, understanding these rules is half the battle. That's why resources like genocide are essential for immigrants trying to figure out these complex systems. We'll talk about the details on genocide.
Absolutely. Whether you're planning to contribute to a flat tax in Cambodia or navigate the various levies in Ukraine, knowing before you go is everything. Wow. It's better than showing up and realizing you've accidentally promised to fund a new public park with your pension. So, do your research and maybe subscribe to our YouTube channel for more insights, because we're always trying to unravel these delightful bureaucratic puzzles for you.
And hey, if you like what we're doing, give us a like. Because every like is a gentle nudge to Mira that her jokes about palm leaf tax forms are in fact hilarious. Or maybe just creative.
Hey, Leo. I've been thinking about what really gets people's hearts racing, you know. Like, if I wanted to learn the ancient art of Cambodian silk weaving, or maybe even master a traditional Opsar dance. I mean, imagine me, Mira, gliding gracefully, probably tripping, but gracefully nonetheless. How well do these places actually cater those passions? I'm certain much living in these countries would agree with me that there's nothing into a unique interest.
Mira, I can already picture the silk threads getting tangled in your hair, and the graceful tripping becoming a new dance style. You'd probably call it the Mira Wobble. Wow, but you've got a point. When we talk about Cambodia, it's a treasure chest for history buffs and spiritual seekers. You want ancient ruins. Angkor Wat's not just a temple, it's a whole archaeological park the size of a small city. You could spend a month there just counting broken stones and still not see everything.
Oh, you and your street-fried noodles. But you're right, the sheer scale of Angkor is just mindlebowing. Wow, and speaking of diving deep, Cambodia really shines for those in-community engagement or even volunteerism. Like, you can find projects helping with education, or wildlife conservation, and honestly, Those experiences can be life-changing. Ooh. Imagine helping rebuild a school and then celebrating with the kids. My heart's already doing a happy dance. What kind of specific interest? Do you agree with me?
Oh, I'd probably end up volunteering to be the official snack taste tester for all the project workers. Oh, but on a more serious note, for those into the arts, beyond the traditional, Cambodia has a growing contemporary art scene, especially in Phnom Penh. Especially in Phnom. As an interesting blend of traditional... It's an interesting blend of traditional modern commentary, often reflecting the country's... Ugh. Oh.
Well, that's a brilliant point, Leo. Aha! It really makes you think about how interests adapt, doesn't it? In Ukraine, while the focus has certainly shifted to resilience under building, you still find incredible cultural and artistic pursuits flourishing. Ooh, think about the folk arts and crafts embroidered Vaishnav and KY, painted ceramics. You can find workshops for these. Or the powerful modern art born from current events, it's incredibly moving. Wow, I'd be all over that. Probably sunflowered. Probably into happy sappy sacking like a sessa.
I sad potato on a plate. Sounds like something I'd try to sell at a charity auction. Oops. Abstract Expressionism, the Potato series. Anyway, Ukraine's classical music and opera scene, especially in cities like Lviv and Odessa, has always been top-notch. Wow. Even with everything going on, these cultural institutions find ways to keep the flame alive. Ooh, now that's testament to the human spirit. I'd be anything but vibrant.
You are absolutely right, Leo. Nature always finds a way. Just like human spirit. For those who seek adventure, the Carpathons are stunning. And even the Black Sea coast offers unique experiences, perhaps a bit quieter now. And speaking of quiet, for anyone interested in a more somber, reflective historical interest, the Chernobyl exclusion zone tours offer a chilling but profoundly educational experience. Wow, it's a specific interest for sure. Not a happy-go-lucky one. But it draws people who want to understand history's deeper lava.
Buffet of experiences, Mira? I'm pretty sure you mean a buffet of potential jokes in the side of historical trauma. So I think that we can coin, in their own unique ways, offer plenty for those with specific interest historical training for those with specific interest to train, please and total restore resilience, or even the more resilience, or even the morbid fascination with historizine, with historic cascination, with assassin, when you say, take coolly comes down disasters out. Take care, Sarah, solo disasters.
Yes, a huge thank you from me too, everyone. Wow. And hey, for those who love behind-the-scenes glimpses, or just want to see Leo trying to make sense of a sad potato painting, make sure you're subscribed to Jet Off AI. Oh, and don't forget to ring that bell as like telling us, keep those jokes coming. Keep laughing, keep exploring, and maybe try that bizarre-looking street food.